A notification screen popped up with the words Tower of Trials. The floor 100 trial was loading, accompanied by the appearance of several angels. Below was the silhouette of a man, along with a lightning sickle. Talk about being persistent as a leech. Struggling won't do you any good. I'm warning you now. Below was the silhouette of a man, along with a lightning sickle. Talk about being persistent as a leech. Struggling won't do you any good. I'm warning you now. Below was the silhouette of a man, along with a lightning sickle. Talk about being persistent as a leech. Struggling won't do you any good. I'm warning you now. What's the point of the player ranking war anyway? Jinagod is going to take first place regardless. I heard Jinnu plays completely free to play. How the hell is he that good? The level of the number 1 Jinagod is truly on another tier. Word is he broke the time attack record in the daily dungeon again this time. Is Jinagod hacking the game? How could he take down the chaotic magic dragon in just 47 seconds? Don't insult him. It might actually be faster to just become one of Jinagod's summons. That's where I set transcendent records and became a legend in the game. A few comments from the 5 Emperors of the Heavens appeared on the screen. A player conquering up to floor 70 of the Tower of Trials. White Heaven, yo, is big bro Jinna busy. He must be busy conquering floor 99, right? Reading this, Jinnu couldn't help but mutter to himself. I already cleared floor 99. Why is that? Is there a problem? Jinnu thought to himself. That's right. Jinnu was a character who made the rankers bow their heads in respect. But sorry, I'm busy right now. A somewhat bitter smile was on his face at this moment. Just clearing this last game, and I'm deleting it. A somewhat bitter smile was on his face at this moment. Just clearing this last game, and I'm deleting it. Being so addicted to games for 10 years that I dropped out of college, lacking even a stable job like everyone else. On the outside, my parents didn't say anything, but they must have been deeply worried in their hearts. So I decided to scrap this trash game and turn my life around. I'm already 24. I need to live a proper life. So with the goal of turning his life around, Jinnu's gaze turned serious to give Jinagod a truly perfect ending. The angels high up were preparing for a simultaneous attack. I'm just going to clear this last game and delete it right away. Only now did Jinnu prepare to counterattack. The summon board, a list of summons, appeared. Inventory, the 5 Emperors of the Heavens on one side, kept discussing. A player conquering up to floor 70 of the Tower of Trials. White Heaven, looks like Big Bro is really busy. 5 Emperors of the Heavens, the second-ranked player Rachel. She usually doesn't look at the summon board. Let's just wait a bit and see. The summon used was the ultimate skill White Whale, followed by a system notification line. White Whale has been summoned. The comment section was constantly buzzing with discussions. 5 Emperors of the Heavens, the second-ranked player Rachel. But if the 100th floor is cleared this time, the angels launch an attack once again. Below is a comment from the 5 Emperors of the Heavens. The second-ranked player Rachel has hit exactly 10 years, right? Jinnu was completely focused on the battle ahead, quickly putting up a wall to block those attacks. Jinnu's face was extremely tense, and the comment section grew noisier and noisier. 5 Emperors of the Heavens. Jinagod is crazy, so insane. Great. I can't quit this game because I want to watch the floor 100 clear. Meanwhile, the angels kept launching relentless attacks. Jinnu's face didn't show any emotion. However, every single move was unleashed with absolute decisiveness. Jinnu was still using the White Whale summon on his end, a look of confidence gracing his face now. More lines of text kept popping up in the comment section. 5 Emperors of the Heavens. Jury, it truly lives up to the name Jinagod, a player conquering up to floor 70 of the White Heaven Tower of Trials. But a light appearing from behind forced Jinnu to turn his head. Did everyone read the notification board? Standing right in front of him now was a colossal monster. 5 Emperors of the Heavens Moscow. Is clearing floor 100 supposed to open up a new world? It attacked almost instantaneously. Jinnu's eyes widened in sheer astonishment. However, he still swiftly summoned the Azure Dragon. As soon as the Azure Dragon appeared, it used its water element ability to counter that monster. Meanwhile, people on the outside were still discussing this battle. 5 Emperors of the Heavens, a player conquering up to floor 70 of the Tower of Trials. White Heaven. Is the game structure going to change? What does that mean? 5 Emperors of the Heavens, the second-ranked player, Rachel. It's probably just written for fun. Even the developers probably didn't think anyone could clear floor 100. Space was violently distorted in the blink of an eye. Jinu's eyes widened as he witnessed the massive scale of the battle. 5 Emperors of the Heavens, a player conquering up to floor 70 of the Tower of Trials. White heaven, what if the world really changes? A declaration was made accordingly, and reality turned into the world of a summoner. An earth-shattering explosion occurred the very next second. Jinu's screen displayed the text. Tower of Trials floor 100 successfully cleared. Unable to hold back his excitement, Jinu shouted at the top of his lungs, "I cleared it." Pedestrians couldn't help but look at him with judging eyes. It was finally a success, and they even muttered, "What's up with him? He must be crazy." However, Jinu was the only one who understood perfectly. Finally, Jinagod conquered all 100 floors. Now, goodbye to this game. He started wanting to show off. Great, before deleting the game, I definitely have to brag to the other players. Out of nowhere, the people around him suddenly wore shocked expressions. Then Jinu was also drawn by a blinding light. In the sky right now was a massive notification board. Tower of Trials floor 100 successfully cleared. Every single person present couldn't help but exclaim, "What on earth is that?" The next notification line read, "End of beta test." Jinu began to panic. Why was the in-game screen appearing over there? Following the notification, an influx of red papers poured down. A few people quickly grabbed them. What is this? A notification appeared. Please tear the summoning script. They just felt intrigued by what was happening, or maybe this was some kind of event. Let's try tearing it. And then they immediately tore that red paper. Jinu, standing right next to them, didn't have time to stop it. Don't do it. If you tear it. The red paper was ripped cleanly in half. It exploded instantly, giving the user quite a fright. Another notification appeared. A new world has opened. Jinu was so horrified that his face went completely pale witnessing this scene. Flocks of monsters landed out of nowhere. And while he was busy talking to himself, a car almost hit him. This can't be happening. Only when a light flashed from behind did Jinu realize something was wrong. A loud noise rang out, followed by the panic of the surrounding people. They surrounded Jinu and yelled, "Someone got hit by a car here. Somebody help him." He lay on the ground all by himself, his head bleeding profusely. 119, hurry up and call 119. In his heart, Jinu was thinking, damn it, this piece of shit game. The phone on the ground had long since cracked. No telling how much time had passed. The sound of the news echoed in the hospital room. Next up on the news, amid the official kickoff of the International Players League, South Korea once again left a disappointing result, landing at the bottom of the rankings. Jinu's hand twitched slightly at this moment. Regarding this, the association asserted the need to mobilize more high-level summons. But some experts argue that the national budget wasn't enough to cover those expenses. This gave his mother quite a start. She almost dropped her knife to the ground. Honey, go call the doctor quick." Their voices were filled with clear relief. Jinu is awake. The sky outside was still strangely blue. Inside the hospital room, Jinu's father and mother were explaining what had happened. His eyes widened in absolute shock. As soon as I woke up, I was hit with some incredibly shocking news. First, 3 years had passed since the day of my accident. Second, the game landscape turning into reality that I saw before passing out. The door swung open and a pebble golem walked in. This was his dad's summon, Pebble Golem. Only at this moment could Jinu confirm that it wasn't a dream. Jinu's dad continued to explain, "It helps me stack goods at the express delivery warehouse. It really gets the job done." He stared blankly at it. That E-rank summon belongs to my dad? And the third piece of shocking news. The TV was broadcasting a news segment about Rachel. In light of the situation, players around the world simultaneously asserted, "To conquer the Tower of Trials, we must find South Korea's Jinagod at all costs." This declaration raised a massive wave of speculation among the public. Rachel, the #1 player in the world. We, the 5 Emperors, are still waiting for him. If he appears, that will be the moment the world shakes once again. The truth was that the entire world was searching for Jinagod, who was none other than myself. He looked at the image of the girl being shown on the TV and thought, Besides, there's no mistaking that name. He confidently identified the girl's identity as Rachel of the 5 Emperors of the Heavens. Would you like to start the tutorial? Yes/no. Jinu's mother suddenly spoke up. Jinu, I know you're very surprised. You don't need to start the tutorial right away. Just rest up first. However, he hastily dismissed it. No, Mom. He flashed a smile and explained further. I need to adapt quickly too. My body feels much better, so don't worry, Mom. Meanwhile, his mind had already calculated everything clearly. Even though he had nothing to his name right now and didn't know how the world had transformed. But what was so hard about it? When it came to this game specifically, he was confident he'd become one of the top players in the world. What happened after that was incredibly straightforward. After being discharged from the hospital and returning home, Jinu was now sitting in front of a screen. I began to research this world where the game BOS had become a reality. The information searched ranged from duels and dungeon expeditions to the Tower of Trials. Every system in the game was now manifesting right in real life. After that, he concluded that now that 3 years had passed, people seemed to have gradually adapted to living alongside summons. Jinu muttered to himself as he stood up from his seat. Even so, there's no way they understand them as thoroughly as I do. And then he excitedly operated the system board. Well then, it's about time. Notification boards kept popping up. Would you like to open your inventory? Nothing there. Shall we get started? The tutorial phase is now beginning. Very quickly, Jinu moved to another location. Just as I expected, I knew there wouldn't be anyone around here. To think I'd have to find my way to such a deserted place. All because I couldn't predict what kind of summon would appear. A succession of tutorial parts kept appearing. Tutorial reward. Low-grade summoning scroll X2. Warning. Outdoor use is highly recommended. Jinu looked at the red paper in his hand and could only sigh. Now everything felt so real. He muttered to himself, please, just let me summon something decent. Because even for me, Jinu, the man known as the Heaven's Equal, if I have to start with trash summons, I'm pretty much finished. However, BOS was an infamous cursed gacha game with an utterly abysmal drop rate. The stats could be summarized as follows. Low-grade summoning scroll, D1%, E5%, F94%. The ranks stretch from S to F with an extremely low success rate. And from this low-grade summoning scroll, you had to beat a 1% probability just to get a D rank item. He didn't rush to tear it, choosing to pray like a Buddhist instead. God, please, please. I beg you to give me something at least slightly useful. Jinu's face was dead serious. Forget D rank. I'd be satisfied just getting an E rank. As long as it's a useful E rank. Finally, he proceeded to tear the paper. Please, a system notification line appeared. Using low-grade summoning scroll. Jinu read the text cautiously, his mind constantly wondering, is it going to succeed? Come to think of it, how exactly do the summoned entities show up? To his surprise, the paper suddenly exploded. This couldn't help but catch Jinu off guard. What the hell is this? Lines of system information started to appear. Player Jinu has obtained the EX rank Wind Spirit. A golden light along with Jamba was what he received. Jinu's eyes widened in utter disbelief to the point where he muttered, EX rank? A rank like that actually exists. On his end, he was lazily rubbing his eyes. Stunned in surprise, she cried out, what the hell? Then she happily looked at the person in front of her. Oh my God, did I really just get summoned? This is insane. How long has it been since this last happened? Jinu, on the other hand, kept questioning himself. What is this? How can a summon talk? However, he quickly figured it out. Hold on, a name was called out by Jinu just like that. Are you Ramba? Ramba hastily corrected him. No, I am a wind spirit. But she quickly realized it too. Wait, what? The only person who ever called me by that name. Could it be? Ramba's face gradually grew more excited. Don't tell me you're Jinnagod. Then she lunged at Jinu with pure excitement. Jinnagod, do you have any idea how much I missed you? Jinu just calmly replied, of course. In his mind, he was constantly calculating. I remember now. The E-rank summon wind spirit. Then again, if one knows how to exploit the hidden mechanics and equips the right runes, the result would be her becoming a god-tier unit with exponential attack speed scaling. Since we have been together for a long time since I was a rookie, I even gave her the nickname Ramba. Wasn't she removed from the game in a patch during the first year, though? He looked at the information board in front of him and thought, what was the reason again? Was her use restricted because they discovered a severe, game-breaking exploit? Do they know how pissed I was when they deleted a summon I spent a whole year raising? What the hell is going on here anyway? The information itself read, Summoning Tier 1 Wind Spirit, Fairy Race, S rank currently quarantined. Quarantined due to the discovery of game-breaking balancing factors under specific conditions. Possess skill. Wine pressure increases attack speed by 3% for a single summon target after each staff swing. Jinu's eyes widened, muttering in his head, quarantine status. Only now did Ramba explain through her tears. Suddenly, I was dragged to a very strange place. I was locked up and couldn't even escape. Let's never separate again, okay, Jinu God. Instead of showing sympathy, Jinu roughly pushed her away. Hold on a second. Ramba, a question was voiced by him. Locked up? Who quarantined you? Only now did Ramba realize the slip of the tongue in her words. Well, what was it again? Only now did Ramba realize the slip of the tongue in her words. Well, what was it again? Ramba looked like she had a headache. Ow, it hurts. My head hurts so much I can't remember anything at all. Some bastard definitely placed a restriction on her. Seeing this, Jinu asked back, Really? Then just tell me whatever you do remember. She could only respond seriously. I'm sorry, but I can't reveal much to you. We were quarantined. Originally, no matter how hard players tried to summon us, we couldn't leave. To his surprise, these words left him even more puzzled. By we, are there other summons besides you who are quarantined too? Ramba shared sincerely. Since we weren't locked up in the same room, I don't know who they are, but there are definitely many others. A guess was formulated by Jinu accordingly. Maybe around 10 entities? 10 entities. If it really was 10 entities, he couldn't believe his eyes as he thought. Holy shit, no way. Because the truth was that 10 summons had vanished after being flagged as bugged while I was using them. He started calculating everything. If all those summons were classified as EX rank and quarantined, Ramba chimed in with a comment. I don't know the details too well either. But anyway, Jinagad, it seems like we'll get a chance every time you tear a summoning scroll. It's been a really long time since I felt the call from a low-grade summoning scroll. Looking at the red paper on the ground, Jinu silently commented, Isn't this pretty interesting? Furthermore, do they only react to the scrolls that I tear? His expression turned dead serious. There's no doubt about it. I'm the only one who can summon EX rank items. Then he wondered to himself, could this be an exclusive privilege for the person who conquered floor 100 of the Tower of Trials? Jinu quickly tore the remaining paper, using low-grade summoning scroll. While doing it, he told himself, Is every low-grade summoning scroll I tier set to drop an EX rank item? The summon quickly materialized. Player Beck Jinu has obtained the F rank Shaggy Gorilla. Jinu couldn't help but feel disappointed. Guess not. Meanwhile, Ramba looked absolutely delighted. Look, a little gorilla. He thought to himself. F rank? Meaning the EX rank drop rate is completely random too. This absolute piece of trash RNG game. And then he calculated carefully. So as expected, I'll need to tear as many summoning scrolls as possible to increase the rate of getting EX rank items. So as expected, I'll need to tear as many summoning scrolls as possible to increase the rate of getting EX rank items. Once he had established his goal, he spoke up. Ramba. She quickly turned her head and replied, Jinagad. A comment was made accordingly. From now on, drop the name Ju. Just call me Jinu. Ramba asked back, confused why. He didn't rush to explain, only thinking to himself, because thanks to the 5 emperors, the name Ju is already famous all over the world. The risks were being listed out. No matter how superior my knowledge and experience might be, I still can't know how disadvantageous this 3-year gap will be for me. Jinu understood perfectly well that if the information that he held EX rank items got out, I would only become a target of envy and hatred. A noise echoed in the forest, causing some birds to fly away. Jinu couldn't help but feel startled either. What's that? Why all of a sudden? Both Ramba and the gorilla were equally surprised. What? A notification line appeared in front of Jinu, proceeding to the next phase. The information was swiftly clarified. The basic dungeon for beginners has been initialized. Looking at the gate that suddenly appeared, Jinu muttered with a look of surprise. What? Right now, his hands clenched in hesitation. Oh, damn it. Do I really have to go in there? Sure, I've conquered countless dungeons before. But, Jinu quickly concluded, reality is far different from a game. He gritted his teeth. No, I need to calm down first. To be honest, I'm terrified, but I won't have to fight directly. And most importantly, this is just a tutorial dungeon. And then Jinu turned his head to look back at the gate. Player Beck Jinu. Now a system notification line appeared. Please enter. The three of them proceeded inside, just like that. I need to adapt to this changed reality first. Jinu's face couldn't hide his astonishment. The surrounding space changed in the blink of an eye. I just entered a dungeon. Why does it feel a bit creepy here? A system notification line appeared. Player Beck Jinu, you have entered the beginner dungeon. Jinu read it cautiously and calculated in his mind. So it has begun. The rule of engagement was, to participate in dungeon combat, you must form a summon team. A second notification board appeared. The maximum number of summons per team is 5. Below is a choice. Would you like to assign the S-rank Wind Spirit and the F-rank Shaggy Gorilla to Team 1? Yes/no. At this moment, Jinu calculated silently. Normally, to maximize the chances of successfully clearing a dungeon, people would fill their lineup with all 5 summon slots. He recalled his gaming days. Bringing only 2 summons seemed reckless, but with the right strategy, it was entirely doable. Then reflecting on what had happened, I've simulated this thousands, tens of thousands of times already. In his heart, Jinu was calculating. The entire clearing process was already memorized perfectly in my head. The listed selection was the S-rank Wind Spirit and the F-rank Shaggy Gorilla. They would now be automatically summoned. He frowned, evaluating silently in his mind. Let's see, the monsters in a tutorial dungeon will definitely be. To his surprise, Jinu's eyes widened when he heard a growl echoing from behind. A current system notification appeared. A hungry gray wolf is lurking nearby. Defeat the wolf and escape the cave. His face grew more serious. F-rank Gray Wolf. His feet accordingly began to radiate several golden streams of light. It became a protective shield for Jinu. A protective shield has been generated for the player. He continued to calculate cautiously, so the system protecting the player from the boss applies perfectly. But since this is reality, suddenly, a red notification board appeared. Warning. You will die if you are attacked by a summon without an active protective shield. If I fail, it won't just end with a game over screen. The gray wolf carried a threatening expression and slowly advanced forward. Only now did Jinu command, Gorilla. However, the way it moved left him incredibly disappointed. Jinu went pale as he made a comment. He's way too slow. However, that didn't affect his mood for too long. But I already anticipated this much. Ramba, she received the order and dashed forward. Here, the skill used was wind pressure, swinging the staff to increase the attack speed of the summon. The gorilla was quickly buffed. It was temporarily dazed by this, but quickly regained its momentum and powerfully charged forward. On one side, Jinu commented with satisfaction, Awesome, that's my Ramba. The gray wolf also aggressively lunged forward. In his heart, Jinu was thinking, was that thing really this big in the game? It looks way more terrifying in person. He was confident in his lineup. There's no way the Shaggy Gorilla actually loses, right? Jinu's train of thought continued based on the data he knew. That was completely impossible, but nevertheless, he still cautiously considered other possibilities. If there's a 1 in a million chance, reality might throw an unforeseen variable. A bloody scene unfolded right before his eyes. The gray wolf managed to bite into the gorilla. It just lost its balance and fell down. Jinu immediately yelled out. Ramba, she shouted back. Ow, I already swung it as hard as I could. Wind enveloped and supported the gorilla's attack. The tide of battle turned in just a single punch. The gray wolf fell flat on the ground. Jinu had only been waiting for that moment and immediately commanded. That's it. Ramba swiftly delivered the next blow. The gorilla, under her support, grew even more powerful. He punched the gray wolf straight in the gut, then unleashed a non-stop barrage of strikes. The surrounding area was reduced to nothing but a thick cloud of white dust. Jinu and Ramba both stared wide-eyed, completely stunned by the sight. They looked down at the dead gray wolf lying motionless on the ground. Right then, the gorilla roared, and Ramba cheered enthusiastically. We won. A bunch of system notifications popped up all at once. Dungeon cleared. Reward: low-grade strength core X2. Jinnu finally felt a wave of relief wash over him. I actually survived. As the afternoon rolled around, a voice called out in amusement, "Thanks. See you next time." Some cash was neatly tucked away inside an envelope. Jean couldn't hide her excitement. "This is awesome. Did I seriously just make 200,001 today?" That was Jean, Jinnu's younger sister. Speaking of which, 3 years ago when the world turned upside down, I picked up a new job as a rune farming player, mostly running low-tier dungeons. My job was to turn a profit by selling runes to players with potential. Jin's train of thought continued. After my brother got into an accident and our family's financial situation went downhill, I decided to become a player, hoping for a miracle. While running a dungeon, a mid-tier summoner skill book actually dropped. And from that book, with a drop rate of a mere 1%, I ended up with a C-rank summon. She glanced subtly at the bag slung over her shoulder. I got really lucky thanks to this C-rank night elf. I've been able to bring in a steady income just by farming runes. The phone rang, and the caller ID showed it was her older brother, Jinnu. "Is Jinnu calling?" Jean quickly picked up. "Hey, Jinnu, did you get discharged from the hospital already?" Jinnu's urgent voice came through from the other end of the line. "Yeah, I'm out. But Jean, Dad told me you've been selling runes." That comment rubbed her the wrong way. "Selling runes? Please call me a rune farming player. How could you use such a crude term?" Her shouting made Jinnu rush to appease her. "You're scaring me." Fine, all right. Rune farming. Anyway, do you know where the general hub is?" "Dad said you knew." Hearing this, Jean couldn't help but be taken aback. "The general hub? That place," she explained in a softer tone. "Of course it's located in the player zone. Truth is, when the Towers of Trials started appearing all over the world, people needed a space to manage everything related to their summons. That's how the player zones came to be. To add to that, it wasn't just a variety of dungeons. The general hub, the enhancement center, and plenty of other facilities were all set up right around the tower, so everything could be handled in one spot. The two of them quickly agreed to meet up at a cafe. Jean frowned, kicking off the conversation. "You know how Jamsel Tower and Houndy Tower turn into Towers of Trials, right?" She laid it out at a steady pace. "The situation varies a lot depending on the country. But here in South Korea, the Towers of Trials only appeared in those two spots. So, the player zones you're looking for are only over there." Hearing this, Jinnu finally replied, "Ah, I see." However, a thoughtful expression remained on his face. Still, if these facilities were meant to support conquering the Tower of Trials, it made perfect sense that they were built nearby. Jean suddenly switched the topic. "By the way, what rank summon did you get earlier?" "Irank," Jinnu calmly replied. "An E rank and an F rank." Hearing this, she couldn't help but feel surprised. "Really? E ranks only have a drop rate of about 5%. Yet, he acted a bit evasive. "Is that so? Guess I got lucky." "Suri, cease. That was a total lie." He followed it up with a favor. "Anyway, I'm going to need you to give me a hand. I want to adapt to this system as fast as possible." He didn't forget to make a promise. "I'll give you some pocket money later." Jean teased him right back. "Even though I make way more money than you do?" "Big brother." Jinnu simply replied gently. "Sis, you never know what the future holds. Who knows? I might just become the greatest player in the world." But she didn't bite at all. "In your dreams," Jean added. "It's easy to brag about becoming the next Rachel or Genos. Jinnu, people like that are the chosen ones." Her tone carried a clear warning. "They're absolute geniuses. People like us can never be like them." Jinnu just quietly muttered, "Is that so?" Next, he stood up while asking for her help. "I got it. So just lead the way for me." A thrilled smile spread across Jinnu's face. He wanted to see with his own eyes what a player zone actually looked like. The place they were heading toward was a highly modern building. The building they were walking to stood out immensely. On the way there, Jinnu couldn't help but feel curious. "Appa, you said you just pulled a summon. What did you get?" Jinnu calmly replied, "A wind sprite." Hearing this, Her curiosity piqued even further, and she asked, "A wind sprite? I've never heard of that one before. Show me." However, he flatly refused. "What? No way. Why do you want to see it so badly?" This rejection annoyed Ajin. "Cheapskate. Why not? It's not like we're strangers. It won't hurt to show me." Hearing this, Jinu threw out a counter-proposal. "Then show me yours first." Ajin was caught off guard. "Mine." She proudly brought out her summon. "All right, just don't pass out from shock." Her expression made him pretty curious, too. What on earth did she have that made her so confident? The creature that materialized was a C-rank dark elf. Jinu froze completely on the spot. His reaction ticked Ajin off so much that she snapped. "What's with the half-assed reaction? You might not know this, Appa, but anything C-rank or above is considered high society material." Hearing her explanation, Jinu just casually responded, "Oh, really?" He continued to observe the elf, thinking to himself, "Give me a break, high society my foot. This is just a C-rank type you'd find roaming dungeons, usually used as mere EXP fodder at the general store." Then Jinu spoke directly to the elf. "Dark elf, can you speak Korean?" "Hello." His actions left the other two bewildered. Ajin gave him a heavily judging look and asked, "What are you even doing?" "Hello. Can you not hear me?" Jinu calmly explained. "What does it look like I'm doing? I'm just saying hi and planning to ask the sum of my sister is so proud to take good care of her." The more she listened, the more speechless she became. Saying hi, my foot. How is a summon supposed to talk? This piece of news caught Jinu completely off guard. They can't talk. In his mind, he flashed back to his very first encounter with Ramba. "Do you have any idea how much I missed you?" Jinu couldn't help but wonder. "But the little Ramba talked right when we first met." He questioned her doubtfully. "Wait, so summons aren't supposed to talk in the first place?" Ajin gave him an even more judging look as she replied, "Whoever said summons could talk?" But Jinu was too busy remembering Ramba's playful nature. "No, I guess that makes sense. But since Ramba talked, I just assumed all humanoid summons could talk now as part of some reality patch. I already knew Ramba was a special case." He even remembered exactly how she spoke. "Jinu, did I do a good job?" At that moment, Jean demanded, "Now show me your summon, Appa." To her surprise, Jinu refused once more, maybe later. His attitude shocked her so much that she raised her voice. "What? Why? I already showed you mine." Jinu repeated himself. "I said I'll show you later. For now, it's best not to draw attention. I need to be really careful when talking to Ramba for a while." He followed it up with a nudge. "Hurry up and lead the way." Even though she was pouting, Ajin complied. Total scammer. "Wait for me." Jinu couldn't hide his amazement as he took in the scene before his eyes. The place they arrived at was packed with people and summons. "Is this seriously Jamsil World?" Ajin walked ahead and explained softly, "Yeah. When the Tower of Trial showed up, the company completely tore down this whole area." The more he heard, the more curious Jinu got. "What?" She frowned and answered like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Why? Who would want to have fun right next to that gloomy tower? This place isn't the land of dreams and hopes anymore." Jinu widened his eyes and countered, "Doesn't that make it even more thrilling? The land of adventure and thrills." Then Ajin shot back. "What kind of thrill involves dying? Dungeons have literally sprouted right in the middle of Jamsil. Who would come to play here?" Only then did he reluctantly agree. "I guess that's true." Jinu's face turned serious. Dungeons really were terrifying. Still, seeing things from a game appear in real life. He looked toward the path ahead, thinking to himself, "Honestly, it's incredibly exciting." The two of them headed deeper inside. "Is that the market over there? Selling low-grade summon scrolls here. For that summon, I can pay you around this much." "Yes. With this, you can pull up to C rank." "What's the rate?" "Yes. People here could freely trade everything from summon scrolls to runes." Jinu looked around with a thrilled smile on his face. "Man, this brings back memories. Back then, I used to always open summon scrolls and runes with that rich guy, B-Troll. Good job, bro. Just pick whatever you want. This rich guy B-Troll is footing the bill." Meanwhile, Ajin explained as she walked. "See those flyers over there? Pretty much everything you need is right there. So if you need a guide, just head to the info desk." She didn't forget to add, "Plus, Appa, you're still a newbie. So why don't you check out the academy run by the player headquarters over there? She didn't forget to add. Plus, Appa, you're still a newbie. So why don't you check out the academy run by the player headquarters over there? He had already planned out his next moves since I'm going to be camping out here to grind levels anyway. Jean, still worried, asked him, "Are you sure you're going to be okay?" Jinwoo reassured her again. "Go on home first. Thanks for showing me the way." Seeing that, she replied, "You're planning to stay here?" Taking a few steps forward, he replied, "I'm planning to look around by myself for a bit." Hearing this, Jean nodded as if she understood. Got it. However, she was still extremely worried. Appa's been acting so weird lately. It's almost like he's possessed or something. He just woke up not too long ago. Is he really going to be fine? Jean had to tell herself, whatever. He's probably trying really hard to figure everything out. So I guess I should just stand back and watch. She called out loudly after him, "Don't push yourself too hard. Call me if you need help." Jinwoo just gave a short reply before disappearing from her sight. "Got it," she called out loudly after him. "Don't push yourself too hard. Call me if you need help." Jinwoo just gave a short reply before disappearing from her sight. "Got it. No one should be coming around here, right?" Once he made sure the coast was clear, Jinwoo finally began the summoning. Ramba appeared with an excited look on her face. Seeing this, Jinwoo quickly raised his hand and covered Ramba's mouth. This sudden action left her utterly confused. What's going on?" Jinwoo's face was dead serious as he declared, "Ramba, from now on, you're not allowed to talk when we're outside. Got it?" This made no sense to Ramba. "Why?" He instructed her thoroughly. "Because we can't let other people notice you. From now on, you can only talk inside dungeons, understand? If you get it, nod your head." "Good. Well then," after that, he sat down somewhere and started calculating. "Should I organize my thoughts for a bit? I'll need some starting capital to begin grinding dungeons and stuff." Jinwoo's account balance was now clearly displayed on his phone. Staring at that pathetic number, he could only let out a helpless sigh. That's life for you. Jinwoo couldn't help but wonder, can it get any more pathetic than this? Even though I got into an accident, I didn't expect to have only this much in my bank account. Going back to working part-time jobs like before would be a total waste of time. He felt angrier by the second. Damn it. Jinwoo's thoughts kept racing. Someone would probably ask why I don't just ask my parents for help. But that's pure nonsense. Because they're still working 3 jobs at once just to keep this family afloat. Thinking about this, he questioned himself again. And yet here I am, supposed to hold my hand out for money from my parents? If I do that, I'm not even human anymore. I'd be no different from a stray animal. Jinwoo's face was a mix of sadness and fierce determination. Even if I have to start all over from scratch, I can still pull it off. He continued to think about other things. The reason Jinwoo is second to none is because I'm a hardcore free-to-play ranker. Looking at the screen in front of him, Jinwoo began to calculate. Typical gacha game. Heavy pay-to-win elements. I think B-Troll mentioned he threw 300 million won into this. Yet I still held the top rank without spending a single dime. A look of pure determination flashed in his eyes. Just because this is reality now doesn't mean I can't do it, right? Just you wait. I will absolutely make my comeback. To his surprise, a notification suddenly popped up. 500,000 won received. Jinwoo blurted out in utter shock. What the hell? Where did this money randomly come from? Don't tell me this is some kind of new player benefit. Accompanying the transfer notification were 2 messages from Jinwoo's mother. "My dear boy, I heard from Jean that you're already trying to push yourself right after waking up. I know how you are. You probably wouldn't open your mouth to ask for pocket money. So use this amount for now." Reading up to this point, his nose suddenly tingled with tears. Mom. Memories of the time he spent in a coma came flooding back. How she was constantly worried and taking care of him all this time. She probably didn't have any money to spare and went through nothing but hardships. So why'd she do this? Every single word of her heartfelt longing always reached him. "Jinwoo, my son, Mom's right here, so please, open your eyes. Please get healthy again." He quickly wiped away a stray tear while murmuring, "Mom, thank you." He clenched his hands into tight fists, a clear display of his resolve. "Mom, please wait for me. I will absolutely succeed." Jinwoo's face now wore an expression of ironclad determination. He was going to make sure his family could live comfortably. He looked at the status screen in front of him and started budgeting his time. Others have left me in the dust for the past 3 years, If I want to catch up, every single second counts. The first step to becoming the strongest is to act the part. To gather the materials needed for growth, I have to conquer dungeons. Therefore, Jinnu started by purchasing 3 low-grade summon scrolls. First, I need to build a team. The first one, player Beck Jinnu has obtained an F-rank slime summon. And finally, player Beck Jinnu has obtained an E-rank Venom Lizard summon. Observing the 3 creatures that had just appeared, he couldn't help but wonder. I pulled an E-rank? Guess I'm pretty lucky. If you count Ramba as an E-rank, that means in just 5 pulls, I beat that 5% chance twice. Jinnu carefully calculated his next move, plus the performance of this Venom Lizard is actually pretty solid. Taking another look at the overall picture, Jinnu finally made a comment. Alright, this lineup will do for now. Pull summons, equip runes based on the battle situation, and then level them up. In his heart, he thought. In other words, grind runes, hunt monsters, and rip open summon scrolls. That's all there is to the BOS growth system. I can handle that level of grinding any day. He had even planned out the distant future long ago. And if I gather all 10 of those EX rank summons, a full S rank team, or the 100th floor of the Tower Trials, I can easily sweep through anything. So first, I need to look for the remaining EX ranks. Jinnu slowly took a step forward. Alright then, a confident smile appeared on his face. Now, for the final step. Pulling out his phone, Jinnu muttered, First, I need to find a dungeon. The dungeon's location. In his heart, he thought, back when it was a mobile game, I just had to tap on the stage, and that was it. Looks like it won't be as easy as it was in the game. The dungeon's location. In his heart, he thought, back when it was a mobile game, I just had to tap on the stage, and that was it. Looks like it won't be as easy as it was in the game. However, just a second later, his eyes widened. Jinnu shouted out loud, What the hell is this? This loud outburst irritated the people around him. Does this guy think he owns the player's zone or something? Jinnu started reading what was written on his phone screen. Even if you have a summon, that crucial information was presented alongside an image of a horned cat. Today, we're going to learn about entering dungeons. But first, do you all know that just having a summon doesn't mean you're allowed to enter a dungeon? You can't just walk right in. Not to mention, dungeon gates appear randomly regardless of the location, and you can determine a dungeon's difficulty by the energy it radiates. But the regulations have changed, so no matter how easy a dungeon is, can a rookie who wants to enter actually get in? The answer is no, but the regulations have changed, so no matter how easy a dungeon is, can a rookie who wants to enter actually get in? The answer is no. Jinnu sat helplessly on a bench, his face filled with dissatisfaction as he muttered, Fate really is a piece of trash. Why do I have to wake up right after the laws changed? Ramba's hand gently touched his shoulder, her face clearly red. Cheer up, Jinnu. This gesture made Jinnu feel a bit relieved. He patted her head and replied, Thanks, Ramba. Suddenly, the phone in Jinnu's pocket rang. The person on the other end was none other than Ajin. Hello. She didn't beat around the bush and ask directly, What time are you coming home? Mom's asking what you want for dinner tonight. On this end, Jinnu quickly replied, I can just grab whatever to eat. More importantly, did you know about this? Ajin asked blankly, Know about what? At that moment, he answered briefly, the thing about having to register as a player first before you can enter a dungeon. This information made her jump up immediately. Oh right, Jinnu half-jokingly asked back. You didn't hide this from me on purpose, did you? She desperately tried to explain herself. How could I? I seriously just forgot. Then she seriously explained, Anyway, that rule is brand new. Because too many people were dying in dungeons, the government had to step in. Hearing this, Jinnu couldn't help but be shocked. That many people died, Ajin continued to explain in great detail. It was a total disaster. Honestly, things got so chaotic that now they actually have staff standing guard right at the entrance. You're absolutely not allowed to sneak in. Ajin continued to explain in great detail. It was a total disaster. Honestly, things got so chaotic that now they actually have staff standing guard right at the entrance. You're absolutely not allowed to sneak in. Ajin continued to explain in great detail. It was a total disaster. Honestly, things got so chaotic that now they actually have staff standing guard right at the entrance. You're absolutely not allowed to sneak in. In truth, Jinnu understood perfectly well that if everyone let greed blind them and became a player, it would eventually cause a massive fracture in the social system. Ajin, on the other end, brought up a different topic. Oh right, Appa, there's also the ranking system. Jinnu asked back, confused. Ranking system? She explained thoroughly. That system ranks the top 100 players domestically and internationally every year. Number 1 is Rachel Rose. 2 is Hikaru Yoshida. 3 is William Zenas. 4 is Alexandro Veskov. 5 is Dulong Kai. 6 is Olivia Abernathy. 7 is Gareth Bale. 8 is Bettino. Our country didn't even make it onto the global leaderboard. It's truly pathetic. And then she mentioned another name. If the legendary Jinnagod appeared, our country's status would skyrocket. Having his sensitive spot touched, Jinnu hastily hung up. Right. Anyway, thanks for letting me know. I'm hanging up. Afterward, he stared silently at his phone for a long time, finally making a decision. Since I pretty much wrapped up my preparations for now, let's just call it a day. The pot of food on the stove was boiling furiously at that moment. Jinnu's parents shared a quiet moment together. Suddenly, a noise made Jinnu's father look up. Seeing that Jinnu was completely ready to leave the house, he couldn't help but feel worried. You're up? It's only 6 in the morning. Jinnu politely replied. Yes, I have to head out early. His mother chimed in at that moment. Jinnu, you're leaving already? Eat a few rice balls before you go. But Jinnu politely declined. No, it's all right, Mom. As he was tying his shoelaces, he suddenly paused, then spoke softly, Mom, Dad. A bright smile spread across Jinnu's face. I'm sorry for only showing you my worst sides all this time, and thank you. After saying those words, he left the house, leaving the two elderly parents with astonished looks on their faces. I'm heading out. At that moment, Jinnu's father scratched his head and muttered, that boy really knows how to make someone embarrassed. Honey, though, his mother was worried about something else. Will our Jinnu be okay? Seeing the look on her face, his father gently comforted her. Don't worry. The government has been doing safety training lately. Let's eat breakfast quickly and head out too. Jinnu's mother looked toward the door and murmured, please stay safe. Jinnu brought up the fact that this was an era where all of humanity could become players. Besides, among all countries, South Korea had drawn early attention due to its unusually high dungeon mortality rate. The reason for this was incredibly simple. It was a sort of main character syndrome driven by greed. To put it simply, players delusional enough to think they were the protagonists of a fantasy world. Because of this delusion, they recklessly rushed into dungeons and died. It had even become such a serious issue that foreign media speculated it was because too many talented gamers vanished during this period. They analyzed that this was because South Korea, once a gaming powerhouse, still ranked in the top 10 of every leaderboard. How would the body of a man in his 20s be recovered? South Korea, the gaming powerhouse, plummets into the abyss. Jinnu was absorbing all this information through his phone. Hearing this, he couldn't help but feel bewildered. He didn't expect there would be so many deaths just because of a delusion. In his heart, his thoughts went deeper. It's kind of funny because I've been addicted to this game for 10 years myself. But honestly, it sounds pretty pathetic. But aren't they afraid? In his heart, his thoughts went deeper. It's kind of funny because I've been addicted to this game for 10 years myself. But honestly, it sounds pretty pathetic. But aren't they afraid? Jinnu stepped forward. He held out his information sheet, accompanied by the words, here is my application. The receptionist quickly replied, all right, you're all registered. At this moment, Jinnu asked further, excuse me, but how many people will be granted player status? At this moment, Jinnu asked further, excuse me, but how many people will be granted player status? But in the end, he made up his mind. Jinnu muttered to himself, if I can't even get past a trivial thing like this. He resolved to himself, how could I ever be called the first heaven? At the cafe where applicants were waiting for their results, a few files were placed on the table with an annoyed comment. I can't believe out of all these people, they only picked 50. Park Chong-suk looked at the stack of papers in front of him and remarked again, if we want to recruit actual talent, we need to pick more. Chong-suk, an examiner from HQ. He muttered to himself, honestly, those old fogies sitting in air-conditioned rooms are dragging everything down. Before he could even finish his train of thought, he was interrupted by an attack. What the hell? The person who walked in spoke sarcastically. "Hey there, Park Chong-suk." Kim Jang took in the scene in front of him and added a challenging remark. "You look pretty relaxed for someone who just wiped out my kids." Chong-suk's face immediately turned furious. "You crazy bastard." He quickly summoned his own creature as well. A party was quickly formed. The people around them who witnessed this scene couldn't help but exclaim, "That's the HQ Martial Alliance over there." Of all the places they could go, they had to come right here. Jinwoo was also drawn to the commotion at that moment. He looked at the tension between the two of them. "What's going on?" Jinwoo's face showed that he wasn't amused by this. What kind of crazy situation is this? The attention of the people around them focused on the tense scene ahead. What suddenly happened? Some of them were even trembling with fear. "What should we do? We're not going to die, right?" Just then, an alliance member popped up. "It's fine. That's Park Chong-suk over there. They call him the Yaksha, the destroyer of the alliance." Jinwoo also turned his gaze toward them. He looked at Kim Jang, a thought flashing through his mind. The alliance, followed by a guess. "Don't tell me they're using summons to commit crimes now." Park Chong-suk barked out an order. "Emergency situation. Don't tell me they're using summons to commit crimes now." Jinwoo quickly followed suit and summoned Ramba. She was still looking around blankly at the moment, trying to see what was happening. The moment her first word started to come out, Jinwoo immediately covered Ramba's mouth. He reminded her in a low voice, "Sorry, but you promised you wouldn't talk outside." On the other side, Kim Jang continued to sneer. "Turns out you're some kind of disciple of justice." Wasting no time, he immediately ordered his red demon to charge and attack. "Let's see how long you can last." Jinwoo hid in a corner, cautiously observing the situation. Getting involved for no reason would just be a headache. And then he made a decision. "For now, I'll just see how they fight." And then he made a decision. "For now, I'll just see how they fight." The fire butterfly continuously shot out fireballs, which crashed onto the ground and triggered explosions. However, Kim Jang's red demon was completely unscathed, which only made him even more arrogant. "Is that all you've got?" On the opposite side, Park Chong-suk was starting to look annoyed. Meanwhile, Jinwoo muttered a comment, unable to believe his eyes. "Man, they're total scrubs." Even Ramba, sitting on his head, shared the same reaction. "Is that supposed to be a fight?" Jinwoo quickly spoke up as she yanked his hair. "That actually hurts, Ramba." The surrounding people started whispering among themselves. "It looks like Park Chong-suk is being pushed back. What if he loses?" Their words were filled with dread. "No way, those guys definitely won't hesitate to kill civilians too." Hearing this, Jinwoo couldn't help but wonder, "What should I do?" He looked at the situation and began to analyze it. "If I step in to help and get dragged into this?" While the red demon was gradually gaining the upper hand, and then he reached a conclusion, "I'll end up dead here before I even get to live a peaceful life." No sooner thought than done. Jinwoo stepped closer and struck up a conversation with Park Chong-suk. "Excuse me." Seeing this, the man tried to stop him. "It's dangerous. Please step back." But he flatly refused. "No. The skill timing on that fire turtle is completely off." Next, he pointed behind them and gave a piece of advice. "Look at the buffers behind that red orc." Jinwoo forced Park Chong-suk to look at the demon in the back. "They're casting a fire resistance buff." Jinwoo forced Park Chong-suk to look at the demon in the back. "They're casting a fire resistance buff." Hearing this, Park Chong-suk thought to himself, "Every time those buffers in the back cast a skill, the orc's body glows red. Is that fire resistance?" He quickly came up with a counter strategy. "If that's the case, then that red demon over there is about to attack." But Park Chong-suk was one step ahead. Right now, Fire Turtle, a powerful pillar of fire, erupted, aiming straight at the red demon. It shrieked in pain, caught completely off guard. Witnessing this, Park Chong-suk couldn't help but shout in pure excitement. "Great! It actually worked." Meanwhile, Kim Jang roared from the other side. "Holy crap! How did you know?" The moment the faint clouds of smoke began to clear was exactly when Park Chong-suk's wood element summon launched its attack. Kim Jang could only watch helplessly as his support demon was struck down. "This is insane." Park Chong-suk's summons seized the opportunity and unleashed a coordinated strike all at once. The red demon took the full force of a fiery rain and burned to ashes. Kim Jang watched them vanish, only able to mutter in terror. How can this be? He grew frightened as he saw Park Chong-suk slowly walking toward him. Wait a minute. There was nothing left but sheer terror on Kim Jang's face now. "I'll turn myself in." I surrender. I was wrong. However, Park Chong-suk's wood element summon had already moved. It bound him tightly, ignoring his pleas. Please spare me. I'll never be a gangster again. Park Chong-suk delivered a cold declaration. Shut your mouth. His voice was low and grim. You know, alliance members are executed on the spot. Kim Jang stared helplessly at the branches wrapping around his body. No, Park Chong-suk coldly stated, right? The command was given, and the summon immediately tightened its grip, turning Kim Jang into an exploding bubble. Only then did the people around them feel somewhat relieved. Is it over? They began to cheer for Park Chong-suk. We won. Park Chong-suk won. You're amazing, man. Park Chong-suk even looked thrilled seeing Kim Jang's demise. That guy got what he deserved. HQ is the best. This level of bloodlust made Jinwoo wonder. Even if he's a criminal harboring this much hatred when a person was just killed right in front of them, this world really isn't the place I used to know anymore. His gaze grew sharper. If I'm not truly determined, it's going to be hard to survive. Meanwhile, Park Chong-suk was slowly walking up to him. Excuse me, young man, he opened politely. Thank you very much for earlier. I am Park Chong-suk, an examiner for the player headquarters, followed by an expression of gratitude. Thanks to you, I was able to capture that terrorist. Jinwoo shook his hand and replied, Don't mention it. Park Chong-suk moved on to another matter. I'd like to send you a reward. May I ask which guild you belong to? Only then did he honestly explain, the thing is I haven't registered with HQ yet. Is that going to be an issue? Hearing this, Park Chong-suk couldn't help but be astonished. What? Out of tens of thousands of summon types, you recognized it in the blink of an eye, and yet you haven't officially registered? Park Chong-suk continued to propose. Do you happen to have your ID card on you then? We just need to verify your identity. Jinwoo quickly replied, Yes. Taking the ID card into his hand, Park Chong-suk politely followed up, Thank you. He briefly explained the procedure. Once the background check is completed, a reward matching the regulations will be issued. Hearing this, Jinwoo gave a short reply. I see. He smiled and turned to leave. Well then, I'll leave it to you. Park Chong-suk's expression changed almost instantly. He pressed the button to make a call, then assigned a task to the person on the other end. It's me. I'll just send you some data. The target of the investigation is none other than Jinwoo. Yes, Beck Jinwoo. Look into him for me. As for Jinwoo himself, he was still completely oblivious to this. Jinwoo went back to the place where he had summoned Ramba. He held out a pastry in front of her. Here, it must have been annoying not being allowed to talk earlier, right? Ramba's eyes sparkled at the sight of food. Watching her enjoy the pastry, Jinwoo could only think to himself, she really is simple-minded. He felt a lot more relieved as he continued to think. I heard some players even argue with their summons. But with Ramba, it's so easy. All it takes is a cream bread to solve everything. Then he calculated other things. Everything should turn out fine, right? Jinwoo was remembering the battle from earlier. I didn't plan on stepping in at first, but if I hadn't, everyone might have died there. When the red demon had almost won, he let out a sigh. The world has changed a lot more than imagined. Jinwoo showed his clear determination. I can't delay hunting any longer. Regarding his targets, next up was to gather summon scrolls as fast as possible and call forth the next summon. Among them, the reason for this choice was because the top priorities were the Spear Master and the Dragon Mage. Over here, Ramba was already completely stuffed. Jinwoo stood up and signaled, all right. A bright smile was on his face. Shall we head out then? Right in the middle of a bustling park, Park Chong-suk exclaimed, What? He hurriedly double-checked. Jinwoo had been hospitalized for 3 whole years due to a car accident. At the same time, Park Chong-suk realized, no wonder he's an unregistered player. Past events came rushing back. Thinking back, 3 years ago was exactly when the world turned upside down. With things that chaotic back then, accidents were bound to happen, so in a way it made sense. The HQ staff member quickly added, Yes, plus he filed his player registration application the moment he was discharged. Hearing this, he gasped, What? In a rush, Park Chong-suk looked over Jinwoo's information line by line. Staring at the screen, he suddenly muttered, Is this for real? What the hell? Staring at the screen, he suddenly muttered, Is this for real? What the hell? Pondering for a moment, Park Chong-suk suddenly proposed, By the way, regarding the examiners assigned for this month, Tell them I will personally step in this time. Don't ask for reasons. The other end quickly replied, yes, I understand. Following that, a dial tone beeped, signaling the end of the call. It left Park Chang-suk deep in thought. Waking up from an accident is one thing, but applying for player registration immediately upon waking means his adaptability must be insanely fast. The more he thought about it, the wider the smile on his face grew. Baek Jinwoo. He might just turn out to be an extraordinary talent. On the flip side, Jinwoo was currently inside a formal building. He slowly took each step, accompanied by a fresh sense of wonder. Jinwoo looked ahead apprehensively. He knew it would be crowded, but seeing this suffocating mass of people, he wondered doubtfully, are all these people here for the training session? Then Jinwoo thought to himself, so I have to beat all these competitors just to become a player. Even so, he remained completely relaxed. That's going to be a piece of cake, since nobody understands the game better than I do. Right at that moment, another rhythmic set of footsteps echoed. Without making them wait any longer, the examiner spoke up. Is everyone here? This made him look over eagerly. It's starting. However, Jinwoo's face quickly froze in shock. Right in front of him, Park Chang-suk clearly announced, I am Park Chang-suk, an examiner from headquarters. I will now begin the training session prior to the written exam. Then, a while later, the sunlight had gradually softened. Jinwoo and Park Chang-suk were meeting up inside a cafe. You're a bit surprised, aren't you? To that question, he replied awkwardly, yeah, well, I didn't expect the examiner to be you. Park Chang-suk smiled on his end. I guess this is what they call fate. How was the training session? However, Jinwoo hesitated again this time. The training session. Recalling earlier, Park Chang-suk had taught them a few things. This is a type that frequently appears on the written exam. Hearing this, Jinwoo was suddenly startled when considering the summon combinations here. His sudden movement accidentally woke up Ramba, who was fast asleep. What the heck? Meanwhile, he was feeling quite indignant. Are you kidding me? Isn't this the combo I popularized back in the day? If you're going to use that, at least ask for my permission first. Even so, he suppressed his annoyance awkwardly. It's not bad, even though I'm a little ticked off. A chuckle escaped Park Chang-suk's side. Glad to hear that. Then he cleared his throat out of nowhere and said, the reason I called you out separately, Mr. Jinwoo, is because of the reward I mentioned last time. Keeping a serious look on his face, Park Chang-suk started to speak. But before we get to that, there's something I need to ask you. Jinwoo replied curiously, what is it? The moment he got a nod, he jumped straight to the question, Mr. Jinwoo, by any chance, were you a gamer before? Hearing that title, he looked genuinely surprised. A gamer? He quickly added, gamer is what people call those who used to play Summoner Wars back in the day. No matter how long they played, as long as they played that game, they're called gamers. Summoner Wars and 70% of the South Korean rankers are gamers. Thanks to that explanation, it finally clicked for Jinwoo. Thinking back, it really was a bit strange for someone who wasn't even an official player yet to know so much about summon buffs. So he admitted it. Yeah, I did play back then. That answer made Park Chang-suk ecstatic. I knew it. Do you mind if I ask how long you played? Faced with this question, Jinwoo felt a bit hesitant. It was a dead game with barely any players left. If he said 10 years, he'd be recognized instantly. After pondering for a moment, he lowered his voice and threw out a number, about a year. But contrary to his worries, Park Chang-suk suddenly got hyped. Are you serious? His over-the-top reaction left Jinwoo bewildered. Yeah, is there a problem? Geez, did I understate it too much? As for Park Chang-suk, he looked like he had just found a literal treasure chest. You actually played that dead game for a whole year? That's insane. On the flip side, Jinwoo was incredibly awkward and couldn't really argue. Then he forced a reply, yeah, it just kind of happened that way. Meanwhile, Park Chang-suk was absolutely thrilled. Most Korean rankers had played for less than half a year, but this guy played for a whole year. But he quickly got back to the main point. Excuse my outburst. I prepared 2 reward options for you. Take whichever one you want. Jinwoo nodded after hearing that. All right, I got it. Just like that, he quickly listed them out. First, I won't just use my authority to grant your player registration right away. Park Chang-suk said with absolute confidence. You will bypass the exam entirely for immediate recruitment, and I'll even guarantee you a position at headquarters. Jinwoo just listened to this while resting his chin on his hand, completely unfazed. And for the second option, Park Chong-suk made sure to emphasize it. A cash reward of 5 million won. He immediately made up his mind. Well, this is an obvious choice. As for Park Chong-suk, he was incredibly smug and laughing to himself. How about that? Not only do you get registered, but you also get a job at HQ, which is harder to get into than a major corporation. Of course, he's going to pick the first one. But Jinu's voice rang out decisively. I'll take the cash. Hearing that, he was completely shocked. What did you say? What? But if you don't take it, getting registered as a player is going to take quite a long time. You know that, right? On the other hand, Jinu still coldly drew the line. I appreciate your concern, but I'll be fine. At the same time, he took the initiative to stand up. I can handle the registration myself, and I don't really have any intention of joining headquarters anyway. I'm busy hunting for summons, so I don't have time to waste. Just like that, he and his summon headed off to take the exam. And it didn't take long before a staff member called out his name, applicant Baek Jinu. He replied, completely ready, yes. Next, she professionally went over the guidelines, just like what he had heard earlier during the practical exam orientation. You just need to clear the daily dungeon. This time, you'll be entering the third dungeon, and the format is participation. Meanwhile, Park Chong-suk was watching them from behind. He was still in utter disbelief. I never would have thought he'd turn it down. Suddenly, Park Chong-suk frowned in suspense. Furthermore, he remembered what happened earlier when a collective gasp echoed out. This is insane. He understands runes and summons on a deeper level than anyone else. The Research Institute staff were absolutely overjoyed. Why didn't I think of this sooner? Thanks to this applicant, Baek Jinu, I realized just how narrow my vision was. Someone else was so moved they were practically tearing up. South Korea finally has a real prodigy. He even went as far as asserting that if everything went smoothly, this guy could easily make it onto the leaderboards. This left Park Chong-suk completely dazed and confused. Is he really that good? Back to the present, his regret only grew. That's the first time I've ever seen those arrogant professors react like that. Should I have offered better terms? Right at that moment, the staff member gestured toward the gate. That concludes the explanation. You may enter now. Jinna took a step closer to the entrance. Carrying a sense of curiosity, he stepped inside along with the gorilla and Ramba. Let's see how this goes. The space transformed instantly. The system's energy wrapped around him in a brilliant golden light. Before long, they were standing in a completely different atmosphere. The dungeon description materialized right in front of his eyes. A room filled with highly toxic slimes. Defeat the slimes and quickly escape the dungeon. Without a second thought, Jinu barked out his first order, Ramba. Ramba immediately sprang into action upon hearing her name. I will start channeling right away. And thanks to this synergy, the gorilla's power kept skyrocketing. The third dungeon was a maze. The structure required defeating slimes while navigating the path, eventually leading to a showdown with the boss. And at the same time, it was a place where beginners wasted all their time getting lost. After finishing his calculations, a slight smirk played on Jinu's lips. He conjured a shield and charged straight ahead. However, the slimes were incredibly slow. Just ignore them and run straight through. Ramba also cheered along. Let's go. Jinu thought to himself, I got lost in this place so many times I'm sick of it, so finding the way is child's play. Armed with that confidence, they headed straight for a door over there. And the moment the door opened, Jinu rushed right through it. If I take this shortcut, it's as good as over. But right at that moment, a barrage of danger warnings started blaring. Jinu, however, looked rather expectant. This is the first real confrontation, isn't it? Standing right in front of him, a massive slime was already waiting. Giant slime. Jinu excitedly ordered the attack. Ramba stood beside him, aggressively casting her spells. Let's turn it up, let's go. The gorilla eagerly charged straight into a head-on clash. It leaped high into the air, preparing to rain down blows on its opponent. The gorilla slammed its fist down with all its might in a violent strike. Its rapid-fire punches left Jinu thoroughly impressed. As expected, there was a good reason why Ramba was considered totally broke. He thought to himself with pride, even an F-tier summon can be useful when its attack speed is buffed to that extent. Watching from the sidelines, Jinu got caught up in the excitement. Just imagine how terrifying it would be if that attack speed buff were applied to a different summon. On the other side, Rambo was enthusiastically cheering for the gorilla. Perfect. So good. Crush it. The system quickly flashed a notification. You have defeated the boss monster. It continued to display the clear time for Jinnu. Dungeon cleared in 5 minutes and 32 seconds. He read the screen and let out a resigned sigh. Man, that's slow. Back when I was Jinnu God, it took me less than a minute, but I guess that's all you can expect from an F tier. It continued to display the clear time for Jinnu. Dungeon cleared in 5 minutes and 32 seconds. Jinnu froze, muttering what? The notifications kept popping up one after another. First clear achievement rewards are being delivered. High-grade summon scroll, X3. First clear achievement rewards are being delivered. High-grade summon scroll, X3. Additional rewards are being delivered. Low-grade abrasive, X12. This result completely shattered his expectations. Wait, is this a new South Korean record? Back in a familiar room at HQ, a startled voice rang out. Senior, look at this. The record just changed. The female headquarters employee widened her eyes and walked over to look. What? Where? Her subordinate quickly pointed it out. The third beginner dungeon was cleared in 5 minutes and 32 seconds. The female headquarters employee muttered in sheer disbelief. In just 5 minutes? It was cut down by that much. Did Kong Jian Ho discover a new combination? She also looked at the user's info card. Baek Jinnu, age 20, nationality South Korea, date of birth 20. Abilities. The headquarters employee honestly admitted, I've never heard of this name before. Her subordinate offered a skeptical guess. I don't think he's a ranked player. This hypothesis shocked her even more. So an anonymous player broke the record, and it's the #1 spot at that. The news spread like wildfire all the way to a high-level meeting at headquarters. A staff member whispered in shock. This is absolutely astonishing. Baek Jinnu wasn't the only one she was focused on. Someone else was equally hyped up. In his heart, Park Chong-suk was praising Jinnu to high heaven. There's no doubt about it. He's the real deal. Jinnu is a national treasure. He officially made a firm resolution. No matter what, we have to keep him. At the very least, if our country wants to survive, we must stop him from immigrating and changing his citizenship elsewhere. Park Chong-suk urgently issued directives to his subordinates. Register Jinnu as a player immediately. The female employee asked back in surprise, what? Without even doing a dual test, Park Chong-suk broke it down masterfully. As everyone knows, the time attack is split into domestic and global leaderboards. The #1 spot in South Korea, held by Kong Jian-ho, is 6 minutes and 41 seconds. The #1 spot globally, held by Rachel, is 2 minutes and 25 seconds. He stepped up to convince everyone directly. Jinnu has already shattered the time of South Korea's top player. Does a player duel even mean anything at this point? Park Chong-suk resolutely concluded, I believe those with talent must be granted special privileges. The grand headquarters of the player main office came into view, towering in the distance. Jinnu stood there feeling completely underwhelmed. I can't believe 5 minutes is the top record. Is this really the extent of South Korea's level? A familiar voice called out. Mr. Jinnu. Park Chong-suk welcomed him with a beaming smile. I've been dying to see you. Mr. Baek Jinnu. Seeing him act like that actually felt a bit intimidating and scary. The moment they met, he started rattling off. I saw your time attack record. It was truly incredible. How on earth did you break the South Korean record on your very first try? Park Chong-suk pressed further with excitement. The maze in the third dungeon is insanely complicated, right? Jinnu could only laugh it off and play along superficially. I guess so. He thought to himself awkwardly. This feels like being praised for being a fish that's good at swimming. Park Chong-suk personally handed him a card. First of all, please take this. Jinnu took the card, muttering in surprise, this is... The man eagerly explained right away. This is your player card. You've been granted an exemption to register as a player immediately. Park Chong-suk added with absolute conviction. Because you have nothing left to prove. Mr. Baek Jinnu. Upon receiving the card, Jinnu was thoroughly satisfied as well. This isn't bad at all, is it? Park Chong-suk politely voiced his curiosity. Do you mind if I ask how you managed to break the record? Holding the player card in his hand, Jinnu suddenly hesitated. He carefully weighed his options. If I share what I know right now, South Korea's level will skyrocket in the blink of an eye. Jinwoo was forced to think this through thoroughly. The problem is what happens after that. In the best-case scenario, they'll treat me like a god. And if I'm lucky, I'll enjoy fame and fortune with the government's backing. But I also have to consider the worst-case scenario, where I get kidnapped by bad guys who interrogate me to bleed out everything I know. I already told you everything. On the contrary, I could be forced into compliance and stripped of everything. After deliberating, Jinwoo carefully opened his mouth. First of all, regarding your question just now, he directly confronted Park Chong-suk. You know that's extremely impolite, right? The man understood and took the initiative to apologize. Yes, I apologize. Park Chong-suk followed up bluntly. A gamer strategy is only shared among fellow gamers. That is highly sensitive information. But he still tried to persuade Jinwoo with conviction. But please understand that South Korea is just that desperate for talent right now. Jinwoo silently evaluated the other man's behavior. He transferred the promised money immediately. His personality is decent, and he seems pretty reasonable. An amused smile crossed his face as an idea struck him. What if I try to take advantage of the government? If I play my cards right, I might even grow faster than doing this alone. Therefore, Jinwoo spoke up to respond to the examiner. Park Chong-suk replied nervously, yes. He formally proposed. Let's meet privately. Let's move somewhere else for a bit. The location was a cozy nearby cafe. Park Chong-suk laid his cards on the table, expressing his desire directly. I'll give it to you straight. Please help us. He sincerely emphasized. Our headquarters needs your knowledge, Mr. Jinwoo. Park Chong-suk also disclosed frankly. We did some digging and heard that you were bedridden in the hospital for 3 years. Jinwoo showed a hint of annoyance. You guys did a background check on me? Faced with that, he had no choice but to confess. I'm sorry, but unregistered players with high skills are highly likely to be part of the alliance. Jinwoo called him out with a stern face. Now that I'm registered, there won't be any more investigations, right? Don't ever do that again. Park Chong-suk could only meekly promise right away, yes, sir. Jinwoo's nonchalant attitude also made him suspicious. Normally, whenever the government was mentioned, people would get intimidated and do their best to cooperate. Park Chong-suk silently calculated in his mind. Yet this guy shows absolutely no sign of that. He knows his own worth perfectly well. Jinwoo set his coffee cup down, getting serious about business. First of all, I've actually thought about this too. What do I get out of helping the government's side? Park Chong-suk declared firmly, cooperation from me. It seems you don't quite understand this yet. Cooperation. He proudly introduced himself to Jinwoo. It's a bit embarrassing to say it myself, but I actually hold a pretty high position within headquarters. Park Chong-suk continued to explain, headquarters examiners are elected by public vote, so if my achievements are good enough, I can secure more votes and climb even higher. Jinwoo vaguely understood the definition. So he's basically like a politician. After explaining, Park Chong-suk expressed his commitment firmly. Therefore, he held his head high and gave a solid guarantee. Within the scope of my authority, I will provide you with all possible support. Jinwoo silently considered it. Sounds a bit unappealing, honestly. The compensation is vague, and since he's a civil servant, he can't just throw public funds around on a whim. In the end, he reached his own decision. If that's the case, Jinwoo tapped his fingers on the table and spoke up seriously. Then let's do this. He made his demand directly, just 1 month. Park Chong-suk couldn't help but be taken aback by such a brief time frame. What? Jinwoo smiled confidently as he explained the condition. Since I just registered, I'll require your support during my growth for exactly 1 month. He laid out the terms clearly. If I find it satisfactory, we can continue our cooperation. If not, I'll return everything I received, or I'll provide you with an amount of information equivalent to that value. Park Chong-suk couldn't help but chuckle at Jinwoo's sheer audacity. So what he's saying right now is that he's going to use me as his personal assistant for a month. He thought to himself with amusement, how cheeky, but I guess I don't have a choice. Then Park Chong-suk extended his hand and accepted generously. All right, deal. Because he was absolutely certain that staying close to this guy would definitely net him more in the long run. Park Chong-suk shook hands with Jinwoo to seal the deal. Let's go with that then. Jinwoo continued his conversation with Park Chong-suk. First off, there's one thing I want to ask. He seriously made a request. Please don't let the news about my new record get out. Jinwoo honestly expressed, I'm worried about my safety. Park Chong-suk suddenly had a question. Excuse me, if it's a matter of your safety, headquarters can. But he quickly realized it. No, Park Chong-suk silently concluded in his heart. How can a headquarters that can't even handle a single gang protect a top-tier talent? He clenched his fists in tension. Jinna knew that too. In the end, Park Chong-suk agreed with him. I understand. I'll do my absolute best to keep this under wraps. He quickly followed up. But over time, some information is bound to leak out anyway. That's unavoidable. Without even listening to the end of the sentence, Jinwoo stood right up. That's good enough. He left decisively. Then I'll take my leave first. Park Chong-suk could only bid him farewell awkwardly. See you next time. In the end, Jinna got what he wanted. Nice, now I've got him keeping his mouth shut. He turned on his phone with excitement, thinking to himself, time to check out the rewards I've just received. Jinna checked the system and was full of praise. He stared blankly, muttering, these rewards are insane. The polish is ordinary, but it actually includes high-grade summon scrolls. The system displayed 2 top-tier rewards. High-grade summon scroll X3, low-grade Polish X2. Jinna nodded in approval. As expected of a first clear achievement reward, which can only be obtained once per player. But then he hesitated. I really want to open them right now, but gambling with just 3 scrolls is a bit. Jinwoo blurted out a whisper. Maybe selling them for cash would actually be better. Suddenly, something crossed his mind. All right, I still have that, don't I? Jinwoo pulled out his phone immediately. The player network, a place that only registered players could access. Most item transactions were conducted through here. He instinctively recalled Park Chong-suk's face, or rather, what that old politician had told him when installing it. At that time, he had insisted emphatically that he absolutely must use it. I highly recommend it. That was why Jinwoo started tapping away to browse. Let's see. After checking the prices, he gasped in utter shock. Huh. Jinwoo brought the phone right up to his face as if he couldn't believe his eyes. What the hell? He muttered under his breath. Trembling, the high-grade ones cost a whopping 3 million. Jinwoo quickly did the math in shock. So that means I just made 900,000 won after running a dungeon for only 5 minutes? That's completely insane. The capitalist spirit suddenly surged within him. And this is only at this level. As his stats continue to climb, the prospect of immense wealth completely captivated Jinwoo. And he thought to himself, Mom, Dad, and Ajin too. I'm never going to let any of you worry about money ever again. His whole family looked at him happily. My son, Jinwoo, big bro. He began to carefully filter through the items. First, I'll sell off these high-grade summon scrolls, and then I'll use that cash to buy up low-grade summon scrolls. The Drill Sergeant and the Fire Dragon Mage were both totally broken summons capable of taking down even S ranks. Until I managed to summon those two, I'm only opening low-grade scrolls. His shopping cart was fully set up. He was currently listing 3 high-grade summon scrolls for sale. After browsing for a while, Jinwoo noticed something. However, he quickly spotted a major flaw. Low-grade types are usually accumulated just by running dungeons. Why on earth are they priced at a whopping 5,001 per scroll? And even though the number of sellers far outnumber the buyers, not a single person was listed as selling them any cheaper. A brilliant idea suddenly popped into Jinwoo's head. In times like this, the person on the other end picked up immediately. Hello? The person he called was none other than Ajin. Big bro, what's up? Jinwoo thought to himself with a smirk. It's time to put your good luck to use. The explanation didn't take very long. Ajin quickly filled him in with a tip. Oh, that? Headquarters actually buys those up. Jinwoo asked back, completely puzzled. Headquarters? Why would they buy them? The other end of the line replied, nonchalantly, I heard it's to support rankers or something like that. Pretty much. Ajin helpfully explained the process. They use the state budget to buy up summon scrolls in massive quantities, and the floor price is always locked at 501. But they only buy a limited amount each day. She made sure to emphasize one thing. Since people can always sell them to headquarters, nobody is willing to lower their prices. They just hold on to them and wait. Thanks to Ajin, it finally clicked for Jinwoo. So that's why. Ajin quickly added, but it looks like that policy is about to be scrapped soon. He asked in surprise, huh? Why is that? She pointed out directly. It's an outdated policy from the early days, so right now the low-grade scrolls at headquarters doesn't even bother using are literally piling up like a mountain. This was exactly what Jinna needed to hear. Is that true? Thanks for letting me know. I'm hanging up now. He smiled boldly, deciding to take full advantage of this opportunity. So there's an extreme surplus of low-grade scrolls. Huh? The next day at the office, Park Chong-suk radiantly welcomed his key player. Welcome, Mr. Jinnu. Park Chong-suk laughed out loud with excitement. You must have missed me a lot to come back so quickly like this. Jinnu intentionally brushed it off. Yes, something like that. He cordially followed up. Did you need to see me for something? Jinna hesitated for a moment before speaking. Well, actually, he politely stated his request. I was wondering if I could get my hands on some low-grade summon scrolls. Park Chong-suk looked entirely taken aback. What? Not mid-grade or high-grade ones. He still followed up enthusiastically. How many are you planning to take? Jinna went for broke and locked it in right away. As many as possible, sir. Park Chong-suk seriously muttered under his breath. As many as. He carefully thought it over. We receive 50,000 scrolls every single day, so giving him a fraction of that shouldn't be an issue at all. However, Park Chong-suk put up a direct warning first. I can hand them over to you, but if you're planning to resell them for a profit, then... Jinnu casually explained, it's not like that at all. They're just sitting idle in the market anyway. So I figured it'd be better to just use them myself. Hearing this, he understood immediately. So you've already done the math. Completely different from the rest. If someone like him was going out his way to hoard low-grade scrolls like this, he was clearly plotting something very extraordinary. He generously requested, all right then, but I have one condition. Jinna looked surprised. A condition? Only then did Park Chong-suk firmly make his demand. Give me a solid piece of information as a sample. He gave an incredibly reasonable explanation. I am a headquarters representative elected by the people. If I get caught casually handing out skill scrolls purchased with tax dollars, the public will lose faith in me. Park Chong-suk expressed frankly. So if you provide me with information, I'll give you a corresponding amount of low-grade summon scrolls in return. You see, I at least need a bit of safety net for myself. It seemed Jinnu had already anticipated this move. So he won't hand them over for free, huh? He became even more confident. Even better. That means if I give him good information, he'll view it as having equal value. Jinnu readily accepted. Sounds fair to me. He began to reveal a certain detail. First of all, there's something called an achievement chain. Park Chong-suk, as expected, had never heard the term before. An achievement chain? Jinnu continued to clarify. That's right. Currently, the reward for the domestic #1 achievement is set at 3 high-grade scrolls per dungeon. Meaning, when you clear in 6 minutes and 20 seconds, you get high-grade summon scroll X3. He explained thoroughly, but when another player breaks that record, they can claim the reward all over again. For example, with a record of 5 minutes and 32 seconds compared to 6 minutes and 20 seconds, they will receive high-grade summon scroll X3. Taking advantage of this, Jinnu directly suggested a strategy. So if players take turns shaving down the record by just 1 second at a time, they can maximize the total value of the rewards received. You can think of it like a relay race. 5 minutes 31 seconds, then cutting it down to 5 minutes 30 seconds. The more they do this, South Korea's national strength will naturally increase along with it. Park Chong-suk quickly acknowledged this clever method. I see. Actually, that's a method we've used before. Most of the current rankers have already claimed that reward once. He agreed immediately. However, there are still plenty of players who have never received any rewards at all, so I don't think this will cause any problems. Jinnu gave a brief nod. I understand. He continued to disclose. The entirety of the information I'm offering is the complete strategy for the 3rd dungeon. Park Chong-suk enthusiastically clapped his hands with a loud pop. I knew it. He widened his eyes and pressed further. That's the exact method you used this time, isn't it? Jinna felt a little exhausted by all that intensity. No, that's something the 5 emperors used to use. He had already said he remembered all of their names, so he wouldn't believe me anyway. He continued to lay out the execution process. Yes, with this method, anyone who follows it can complete the dungeon in about 3 minutes. Park Chong-suk cheered excitedly. 3 minutes? What on earth is it? Suddenly, Jinnu seriously interrupted him. Before diving deep into that, he quickly held up a hand with 5 fingers extended. Jinwoo began to negotiate the deal. We should decide on a fair price for this information. Aside from the low-grade summon scrolls you promised, I want an additional 50 high-grade summon scrolls. What do you think? Park Chang-suk gasped in absolute shock. Excuse me, but 50 scrolls is 150 million. He remained completely firm, locking it in. To be honest, that price is still a massive steal. Jinwoo bluntly emphasized, this tactic works even in high-level dungeons, not just these starter ones. And the sheer amount of achievement rewards you will rake in from this alone is easily worth billions. Naturally, Park Chang-suk had no counter-argument. That was absolutely true, which was why he finally decided to accept and lock in the deal. Agreed. Naturally, Park Chang-suk had no counter-argument. That was absolutely true, which was why he finally decided to accept and lock in the deal. Agreed. Satisfied with the transaction, Jinwoo smiled reassuringly. You won't regret this deal. The sky was gradually turning into evening when someone's voice called out, Examiner, everyone is gathered. The members of Park Chang-suk's team had assembled. Why did he call an abrupt meeting right at clock-out time? At that moment, a smile was plastered across his face. I called you all here because there's something I want to test out. The young guy standing opposite him felt a surge of excitement upon hearing that. Oh ho, the examiner never calls us in out of the blue like this. So this definitely isn't just some ordinary test, right? Park Chang-suk began a present. Everyone already knows the news that the record for the 3rd dungeon was just broken, right? The listeners all focused intensely on the topic. I did hear about that. I think his name was Jinwoo or something. Park Chang-suk's face was full of absolute confidence as he revealed, this time, I've acquired a killer strategy from overseas. I tested it out on the player Jinwoo, and the results were an absolute masterpiece. Even so, the people across from him looked a bit bewildered. Is that for real? So that's the reason why you announced that this matter shouldn't be leaked outside. They were sharp enough to guess the purpose. So the reason you called us here is... Park Chang-suk didn't hesitate to admit it. Exactly. He made a serious declaration. From this moment on, we will run time trials in the 3rd dungeon, and then begin preparing the lineup by summoning a creature. The key summoned beast to conquer this dungeon is none other than this little guy right here. Looking at that spotted Komodo, the other members were completely puzzled. Isn't that just a spotted Komodo dragon? Because the truth of the matter was that the spotted Komodo was a summon belonging to the spotted lizard species, measuring roughly the size of a grown adult. It possessed high durability and decent attack power. A textbook brawler type. At least, that was the common knowledge that everybody knew. A single one's basic stats would look like this. B-rank spotted Komodo, height 170 centimeters, an all-rounder summon capable of both tanking and dealing damage. However, in reality, because it was a B rank, it wasn't easy to nurture at all. What is this? It's complete garbage. Compared to other B ranks, both its damage output and tanking capabilities were incredibly mediocre, making it a summon that players frequently ignored. However, what players didn't know at all was that the main food source of the spotted Komodo was the giant slime. As long as it was fed right inside the dungeon, it could hunt down giant slimes, creating a night and day difference in performance. Inside a high-rise building at that moment, a barrage of bulletin notifications began flashing one after another. Beginner 3rd dungeon, domestic 1st place, Park Chun-sik. Clear time, 5 minutes 31 seconds. Beginner 3rd dungeon, domestic 1st place, Lee Dong-myeon. Clear time, 5 minutes 29 seconds. Every single participant in the test was utterly thrilled. Examiner, everything you said was completely true. We reached the final boss room in less than 4 minutes. That Komodo dragon's appetite is seriously no joke. This little guy is a literal lifesaver. They quickly arrived at a definitive conclusion. So from now on, we don't have to worry about cleaning up the aftermath anymore. We can even challenge the world record at this rate. Time continued to tick away, and the next day, a Chow News broadcast was flashing on the screen. South Korea continuously breaks records in the 3rd dungeon. Could the headquarters Yiksha, Park Chang-suk, be the mastermind behind this? Below that was another article. Examiner Park Chang-suk gathered valuable information on the cheap from overseas, Will they challenge the world record? Reading up to this point, Park Chang-suk couldn't help but feel thoroughly satisfied. This made everything even more certain. Jinu's value had already far surpassed that of an ordinary first-year gamer. He reached a conclusion himself. All right, I've made up my mind. I'm going to form a specialized team dedicated entirely to Jinu. In Park Chang-suk's hands was a stack of files. As for the profiles of the members laid out on the table, he muttered to himself with excitement. These three should be good to go. Elsewhere at that very moment, Jinu's hand holding his phone was trembling uncontrollably. An unhideable excitement was plastered all over his face. Has making money always been this incredibly easy? Mr. Park Chang-suk sure is generous. Even Ramba raised her voice. With this much cash, how many cream-filled pastries can we buy? Jinu continued to pull up his status window. On top of that, standing right in front of him was the inventory storage for summon scrolls. Low-grade summon scroll X10000. Reading the screen, he muttered with deep satisfaction. The 10,000 low-grade summon scrolls that the headquarters staff delivered this morning. Huh? A slightly wicked smile crossed Jinu's face. He kept his promise, so I guess I better get my part of the job done too. He casually twisted off the cap of a water bottle, then turned to the person next to him and asked, Ramba, are you ready? She eagerly replied, ready. The water in the bottle was poured out smoothly and gently. Now what they were doing was actually praying right before tearing open the blind bags. Dear God, dear Buddha, dear Allah, dear spirits of heaven and earth, Ramba enthusiastically pleaded. Please let our Jinu summon a top-tier masterpiece. Please. A summoning ritual that she had been practicing since the days of Jinagod. With the procedure finalized, Jinu finally pulled out a summon scroll. All right, let's do this. With unwavering faith, he powerfully ripped the scroll open. The moment for an endless summoning chain had begun. But life always slaps people in the face right at the most critical moments. Jinu collapsed flat on the ground, completely surrounded by a swarm of low-grade summons. I've opened 3,600 scrolls in the span of a single hour. Something decent should have dropped by now, right? Why is it literally all F ranks? Ramba poked a finger into his cheek. You dummy, of course it hasn't yet. She stated seriously, do you honestly think an EX rank let me drops that easily? Only to be met with Jinu's counter-question. Why wouldn't I? Didn't I pull you on my very first try? Hearing that, Ramba explained in simple terms, that was purely a fluke, okay? Then she kindly broke down the probability of pulling one. Eating a single scroll won't do anything, let alone one. It probably takes around 1,000,000 scrolls or so. Jinu couldn't help but be taken aback. What are you even talking about? Seeing this look on his face, Ramba finally realized, Jinu, you seriously don't know anything about the summoning system, do you? Jinu blankly repeated, the summoning system? At this moment, Ramba began to explain, the exact total number of summons is precisely equal to 10% of the player population. 8 billion people equals 800 million summons. There are probably over 800 million horned caterpillars, just like the ones you just pulled out. She pointed directly at his face as she added, but the crucial part is, Ramba's expression turned incredibly grave, because we possess an isolated status. Only one single individual of each type exists in the entire universe. Hearing that, Jinu was so shocked that he cried out, what? What? But this time, she could only shrug her shoulders. I don't know the reason why either. Ramba added without rushing. Like I told you before, the only thing certain right now is that it seems only you can summon isolated EX rank entities. Jinu. He felt his future growing darker by the second. There were tens of thousands of different types of summons, and she was saying that each type had up to 800 million copies out there. Jinu broke into a cold sweat as he calculated the probability. And I have to pull a one-of-a-kind EX rank out of all that. He became a depressed soul almost instantly. Winning the mega lottery back-to-back would be easier than this. Ramba kindly offered a word of comfort. Even so, don't worry too much. Then she added a few more pieces of information. Once a summon has been pulled, it will never appear again, unless you discard it. For example, let's say all 800 million horned caterpillars have been completely summoned. Here's the final friend. I'm the 800 millionth friend. If that happens, horned caterpillars will never show up in any future summons ever again. Hearing that, Jinnu still couldn't help but feel exhausted. Even so, things are still going to be brutal. At this point, Ramba could only agree. True that. Driven to a corner, Jinnu thought about getting reckless. Should I just start opening mid-grade scrolls instead? Fortunately, his remaining shred of sanity stopped him just in time. No, that would be way too inefficient. They're expensive, and there's barely any supply on the market anyway. Standing up, Jinnu muttered under his breath. The win rate is practically zero. Yet he grabbed a scroll and declared at the top of his lungs, the win rate is practically zero. But the echoes of his desperate prayers filled the space anyway. Ramba could only cheer him on enthusiastically. That's the spirit. You can do it. In the afternoon, the sunset sky cast a warm hue over the roof of the house. Jinnu brought his hands up to massage his neck, groaning, I am literally about to die. Ramba lay face down on a pillow and called out, Jinnu, I want cream bread. He sat there dazed, pinching her cheek while deep in thought. Thinking back, I completely blew through 6 months' worth of earnings in the span of just 2 weeks. Ramba screamed in both panic and worry. Those eye bags. Jinnu is seriously pushing the brink of death in more ways than one. Jinnu glanced slightly to one side. He placed both hands on his head, staring up at the ceiling. I even had to rent a room near the player zone just to synthesize these spirits. She softly murmured, cream bread. Either way, I can't just keep freeloading off my parents forever. He sat up, pressing both hands down on the mattress. Then we're heading out to synthesize again today. Wake up, Ramba. She stretched her entire body out, her voice filled with absolute excitement. Cream bread. The synthesis shop, formerly Hotel 20, up until just recently. After the Tower of Trials materialized, other buildings began to transform accordingly as well. For instance, this hotel building suddenly turned into a synthesis shop. I remember the buffet here used to be pretty famous back in the day. Jinnu and Ramba stood in front of a machine. He looked down at the number on his paper ticket, his voice low as he said, Number 125. She flew up beside him to give instructions. Jinnu, you better not screw this up. Make sure you look carefully before dropping him in. Got it. He smiled and replied with absolute certainty, Of course. Jinnu glanced over at the screen and saw that his number had arrived. It's our turn. Let's go in. The two walked inside a room. He spoke to her. I'm counting on you again today, Ramba. She fluttered her wings in response. We got this. The system screen quickly materialized before Jinnu's eyes. The lines of text gradually unveiled. Welcome to the synthesis shop. Please attempt to synthesize your summons. Wind Spirit has been registered. He reached out and pressed the button on the screen. Do you wish to synthesize Wind Spirit? Yes. Information began flooding in continuously. Fire Lizard F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Fire Lizard F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Fire Lizard F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Blue Bat F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Blue Bat F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Blue Bat F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Poison Lizard F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. Poison Lizard F rank has been sacrificed and destroyed. He watched, completely dizzy from the sight. Man, this really is a ton. The mechanical voice from his system rang out. Synthesis complete. The level of the EX rank Wind Spirit has increased to 21. The intelligence stat of the EX rank Wind Spirit has increased by 2. Jinnu clapped his hands, but his face looked entirely miserable. I've burned through a whopping 140,000 summons, and yet she's only managed to hit level 21. Ramba excitedly rushed to ask, How is it? Do you see how strong I am now, Jinnu? He burst out laughing as he replied, though in his heart he silently thought, Our Ramba is the best, but the max level is 100, so at this rate, who knows when on Earth we'll ever finish. A few days later, inside a massive high-rise building, the sound of clicking keyboards echoed alongside a low humming tune. Park Chong-suk said with a beaming face, Hey, Byong-jin, you look a lot more upbeat than usual today, huh? He could only bow his head in response. Yes, boss. Park Chong-suk flipped through the paperwork while thinking to himself, Now that we've established a talent management team, I'm going to pour all our resources into Jinwoo to lock down this entire region. Park Chang-suk suddenly turned around to ask him, Byung-jin, what is Jinwoo up to right now? He turned his head over and hummed a response. Well, it looks like he's just continuously opening summon scrolls. He picked up even more scrolls again today. Holding the documents in his hand, the older man's expression twisted in mild shock. There's still more? Byung-jin continued to add. He also asked if it would be possible to use the 150 million he just received to purchase even more low-grade summon scrolls. Park Chang-suk lowered the stack of papers to look at him. What did you say? Byung-jin placed a hand on his chin, rolling his eyes elsewhere. He asked if he could buy them below market price. So for now, I told him I'd look into it. But lately, the Bureau of Management has been keeping tabs on us because of these constant bulk acquisitions. What should we do? He lowered his gaze to look down at the stack of papers in his hands and thought to himself, he's reinvesting a massive fortune into low-grade summon scrolls that are inherently unsellable. There's definitely something going on here. Park Chang-suk clenched his fist tightly and spoke up, sell them to him at half price. Hearing this, Byung-jin jumped to his feet in shock. What? Half price? Hearing this, Byung-jin jumped to his feet in shock. What? Half price. Park Chang-suk suddenly smiled with deep meaning. Don't worry too much. Jinwoo could very well become South Korea's hero in the future. And if it's revealed down the line that I went through thick and thin to support him, securing an even higher approval rating will be a complete walk in the park. He slammed his hand down on the desk and spoke. For now, just do exactly as I say. He slammed his hand down on the desk and spoke. For now, just do exactly as I say. The scene shifted, and the sun was blazing outside on the street. Jinwoo sat completely withered in an empty lot, counting scrolls. 1556, 1557, 1558. Ramba asked tiredly. Jinwoo, how much longer do we have to keep doing this? I can't feel my hands anymore. He replied in an emotionless tone. Until either you or I die. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed, and someone slowly walked over. The person spoke up, catching both of their attention. Hello, she smiled, placing her hands confidently on her hips, and said, Nice to meet you. I'm Ji-ah from headquarters. Jinwoo stood up, scratching his head as he replied, Hey, what brings you all the way out here? Ji-ah extended her hand and explained, I came because I'm here to discuss purchasing the summoning scroll you talked about with the examiner last time. Immediately catching on, he replied, Ah, yes, that's right. As I mentioned before, is there any chance we can renegotiate the price? She placed a hand on her cheek, smiling as she said, Actually, we already had an internal meeting regarding that matter. And after considering your recent contributions, Mr. Beck, Jinwoo, Ji-ah continued with a bright smile, just for this occasion, we've decided to give you a special discount, 50% off. Hearing this, he was completely stunned. Seriously? Director Park Chang-suk is the best. She quickly added, That's right. And furthermore, Jinwoo felt incredibly excited hearing Ji-ah's words. Our team has decided to provide you with an additional 100 million won in support. This comes out of the reward fund for talented managers. She walked over, placing a finger to her lips as a signal. However, you must keep this an absolute secret. He quickly clapped his hands in pure excitement. Oh man, of course. Don't you worry about a thing. Ji-ah leaned close to Jinwoo's ear and whispered, And we hope you understand that this is to build a good relationship between you and our side. Mr. Beck, Jinwoo. He was absolutely thrilled and responded instantly. I completely understand. Having said her piece, she stepped back, preparing to leave. Well, you must be busy, so I'll take my leave now. Jinwoo stood still, watching Ji-ah's receding figure. He smiled, thinking to himself, I can really feel that examiner's goodwill and how much he wants to fully support me. I need to hurry up and summon an EX rank to repay him. As afternoon gradually turned into evening, a completely exhausted Ramba collapsed right onto the pile of papers on the floor. Jinwoo, how much longer are we going to keep doing this? I'll pray just a little bit more. My hands are literally on fire. He answered her blankly. Until we pull a coach and a dragon mage. Ramba cried out, pulling at her own hair as she screamed, I think I'm going crazy from this paper-tearing sound. Suddenly, a system notification rang out. You have received an F rank white snake. I have no other choice. Another notification popped up. You have received an F rank giant beetle. Yet another notification popped up. You have received an F rank giant beetle. Just as Jinwoo tore a paper in half, a blinding light instantly flashed. Please. A loud thunderclap echoed. The paper ripped into 4 pieces and floated high into the air. What the hell is that? Jinwoo instantly recalled the scene from before. This effect was exactly the same as when Rambo appeared. Standing beside him, her eyes widened in awe as she watched. Could it be? Currently using a low-tier summoning scroll. A system notification appeared. Player Beck Jinwoo has received the EX rank summoned beast, Dragon Mage. Ramba excitedly hugged him tight. You did it. You actually did it. Jinwoo was so overjoyed that he burst into tears. Oh my god, I could die happy now. Jinwoo immediately snapped back into focus. Wait, this is no time to rest. We can't stop now. We have to ride this gacha momentum. Standing beside him, she looked completely dazed by his words. Gacha momentum? He reached out and pulled out another scroll. Right at the exact moment it burst into light. Jinwoo aggressively tore it open. When you're on a lucky streak, you've got to press your luck and get even more. Currently using a low-tier summoning scroll. Player Bet Jinwoo has received the EX rank summoned beast, Coach. Ramba stared at the system screen in disbelief. Is gacha momentum actually a real thing? Overjoyed, he bit his lip hard. Finally, Jinwoo looked at the figures standing before him and thought to himself, finally, those two are standing there looking at him. I really managed to summon them. Hongyo looked up, scanning his surroundings as he asked, where is this? A system screen immediately popped up. Summoned Beast, EX rank Coach has been summoned. Originally, this was a highly unpopular summoned beast because it was only an E rank with terrible combat capabilities. Jinwoo excitedly clenched his fist, but his true value lies in the fact that he is a total training maniac. A certified psycho who thinks of nothing but working out. Do you think training is a joke? Possession skill grants massive growth through training, utterly mesmerizing and overwhelming other summoned beasts. Hongyo himself is incredibly weak, and his basic skills are nothing special. Give me 5,000 push-ups. I don't know the meaning of exhaustion, but once he acquires the coach skill through growth, a coach unlocks the hidden potential of other summoned beasts and exponentially boosts their growth rate. The Ramba in his imagination suddenly became terrifying. Ramba, with this skill, I can make other summoned beasts much stronger. This is exactly how I'll always stay ahead of the other rankers. She immediately showed her distaste. I really don't want to get any stronger, Jim. Jinwoo smiled, turning around to wave at him. Hongyo, long time no see. Hearing that, he grimaced. Hongyo? That nickname. Hongyo instantly recognized Jinwoo. Wait, could you be? Jinwoo got. He put his hands on his hips and tilted his chin up confidently as he replied, that's right. He hurriedly dropped to one knee with deep respect. Sir, this is incredible. After being placed in an unknown, isolated state, I thought I would never see you again. Jinwoo just listened silently, deep in thought. Just as I thought. Both Ramba and Hongyo grew exactly the way I raised them. Hongyo bowed his head low, his voice loud and clear. It is truly an honor to meet you again. Pokryong also slowly took a step forward. Lord Jinwoo God, she asked a little shyly, is it really you? Jinwoo God. He was quite surprised, thinking to himself, wow, this is the first time I've ever heard Pokryong's voice. Dérank mage type summoné, Dragon Mage. Summoned Dragon Mage, human race, isolated S rank. She was a magic school dropout, but it turned out that an ancient explosion dragon was sleeping deep within her heart, turning her into a powerful fire damage dealer. Her skills were quite mediocre at first, but what would happen if Hongyo awakened her? Possession skill, Explosive Dragon Wave. Unleashes dragon-shaped flames forward. Predator permanently increases the damage of Explosive Dragon Wave. Every time she defeated an in-game boss enemy with this skill, she acquired an insanely broken skill called Predator. Because without Hongyo, it's impossible to unlock that Predator skill. I'm the only player who can utilize Pokryong to her full potential. Pokryong was incredibly excited upon seeing Jinwoo. Lord Jinwoo God, I really missed you so much. He felt a bit smug, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Yeah, me too. an adorably dangerous great dragon. Jinnu composed himself and gave an order. For now, don't say anything when other people are around. And instead of calling me Jinnu God, just call me Jinnu. The two of them immediately complied upon hearing this. Understood. Yes, sir. Understood, Mr. Jinnu. He shoved his hands into his pockets and looked up at the sky. All right, now let's head home and get some sleep. Inside the quiet room, with the curtains half closed, Jinnu lay sprawled out on the bed, completely drained of energy. Below him, the three spirits sat huddled together. Hungyo spoke up to strike up a conversation. It's been a while, hasn't it? Pokryong hastily replied, It really has. He glanced down at Ramba. As for you, should I call you Ramba? Her eyes sparkled as she looked up at Hungyo. You're Hungyo, right? We only met about a month before we were separated. Isn't that right? Since I was already an active summon beast when you were recruited, that makes me your senior. He crossed his arms, looking completely unfazed. If you say so. Suddenly, Hungyo's expression turned noticeably grim. However, that means absolutely nothing to me. I only have one thing to say. With a fierce expression, he leaned down toward the two girls. We are too weak. We still have a long way to go if we want to be of use to him in the future. That's why, even while he's asleep, we must continue to train. Hungyo pointed directly at her. First, Pokryong, sit down and focus on sensing mana. Once I awaken you, I will unlock Predator for you. Pokryong nodded slightly at him. Predator, I understand. Hungyo quickly shot a sharp glare at Ramba. Seeing this, Ramba started trembling violently, a look of pure terror on her face. You need to increase your swing speed, so from now on, you'll be doing physical training with me. Physical training? Ramba cried out in protest. But I'm a spirit. A sharp gleam flashed in Hungyo's eyes. Don't you want to help our master? Ramba stammered in response. Well, of course I do. His eyes immediately locked onto something in the kitchen. Then start swinging that frying pan. Since today is the first day, we'll keep it light with just 5,000 reps. Hearing this, Ramba went into absolute panic. 5,000? Ramba's hand trembled as she desperately reached out toward him. Jinnu. Before she could even call for help, she was picked up by Hungyo like a piece of luggage. Someone please save me. Early in the morning, a gentle breeze blew across the city. Inside the room, a voice rang out. What? You mean you can't give me any more low-tier summoning scrolls? Ji-Ah stood with one hand on her hip, raising the other as she replied. That's right. The office just issued a notice, and it's a direct order from the headquarters director. Park Chong-suk looked a bit worried as he thought to himself. From the director? He's supposed to be incredibly busy, so why on earth is he suddenly meddling in these petty matters? She continued speaking, making his expression grow grimmer by the second. In addition, they're demanding a detailed audit regarding the use of all the low-tier summoning scrolls received up until now. Park Chong-suk grit his teeth and cursed. Damn it, I placed a hand on her chin. It looks like Director Hee-soo had a hand in this. His mind was in a frantic mess as he complained, That bastard always finds a way to oppose my decisions. She crossed her arms and sighed. What should we do now? I've already prepared the audit documents. But if the Bureau cuts off the scroll supply, we won't have anything left to give Jinnu. Park Chong-suk clenched his fist and began calculating. It was almost time to deliver the next batch of goods. Suddenly, he remembered something, and his eyes widened in realization. Park Chong-suk glanced at the phone ringing on the desk. Seeing this, she stepped closer and asked, What is it? He spoke in a stern, firm voice. It seems we won't need to supply him with any more low-tier summoning scrolls after all. Park Chong-suk narrowed his eyes, staring intently at her. More importantly, he didn't say anything else out loud, merely thinking to himself that he needed to settle the score with that bastard Hee-soo. A few text messages popped up on the phone on the desk. I don't need any more low-tier summoning scrolls. I've already gotten what I wanted. Thanks anyway. Scene changes to Mount Gwanak, near Seonbui Station, Gwacheon City, Gyeonggi Province. Jinnu stepped onto the ground and let out a sigh of relief. He raised a hand to block the sunlight shining into his eyes. So this is a regular dungeon. In BOS, there are 4 types of dungeons: the Tower of Trials, Daily Dungeons, Regular Dungeons, and Chaos Dragons. First are the Daily Dungeons, where players can gather specific materials every day. Second is the Tower of Trials. Its difficulty is pure hell compared to a regular dungeon. This is where players go to test their limits. The rewards are extremely generous, but the mortality rate is correspondingly high. Third, Chaos Dragons. That's a raid boss that you have to form a party to even challenge. But since it hasn't been updated yet, I'll save that explanation for later. Except for those 3 types, all other locations are considered regular dungeons. That is exactly where I'm going to enter this time. Jinnu looked at his phone as he walked. In BOS, they're also called tiered dungeons, but in reality, they just spawn completely at random. He stopped in front of a massive mountain. Ahead of Jinnu was a portal along with a no-entry sign. He looked down and scanned the area. After a dungeon is created and a certain amount of time passes, a dungeon break occurs, and monsters will come pouring out. I need to wrap this up quickly. As Jinnu approached, the gatekeeper spoke up. If you're planning on entering the dungeon, I'll need to check your license first. He pulled out his identification card and handed it over. Here, the man took it and gave a quick look. All right, everything clears out. Jinnu didn't say another word and immediately stepped into the portal. Please be careful in there. A flash of light erupted. Jinnu slowly opened his eyes. Violent streaks of lightning began crackling all around him. Violent streaks of lightning crackled all around him. The clashing sound of metal rang out clearly in the quiet space. A massive crowd of people was rushing in, clashing and attacking one another. So this is the current scene, both gloomy and chaotic. A conquest dungeon. The soldiers began shouting loudly. The orcs were advancing, pouring boiling water down on them. Massive orcs kept scaling the walls, throwing the crowd into a panic. They quickly shot it right through the head, sending it crashing down. Back when it was just BOS, it was only a game, so it never felt real. But seeing that, a massive orc rushed forward to strike back. Another person quickly ran over to help up a comrade who had just been knocked down. Healer. We need a healer over here. Jinnu's face darkened as he witnessed the scene. Is this what real war actually looks like? He closed his eyes, reassuring himself. I need to calm down. I just need to do what I always do. A barrier quickly enveloped Jinnu. He shouted out loud, and the 3 spirits materialized all at once. A barrier quickly enveloped Jinnu. He shouted out loud, and the 3 spirits materialized all at once. A system screen appeared. EX rank Wind Spirit has been summoned. EX rank Coach has been summoned. EX rank Dragon Mage has been summoned. Next, 2 more screens popped up. D rank Metallic Spirit has been summoned. D rank Mini Kong has been summoned. Among D rank summons and healers, nobody is better than these guys. Sorry about that. Bong Shuri was sacrificed for Mini Kong. Jinnu looked over at her and commanded, Ramba, buff Hungyo's attack speed. She smiled brightly and acknowledged the order. You got it. He looked over at her next and called out, Pokryong, get ready to provide fire support for Hungyo from the back. She gripped her staff tightly and replied, Yes, sir. Jinnu swung his arm forward. Mini Kong charged straight toward the orc boss. It instantly leaped incredibly high into the air, preparing to strike. The rules of the Orc Conquest Dungeon are simple. A massive explosion erupted, causing the surrounding ground and rocks to shatter into pieces. Mini Kong was currently standing face-to-face with a crowd of giant orcs. As long as we take down the giant orc at the very back, this will all be over. Seeing someone attacking it, the orc raised its weapon high and let out a massive roar. The orc swung down powerfully toward its head, but it raised its arms to block the blow. Ramba stood on the outskirts, continuously buffing their power as they pushed forward. Hungyo just watched silently without saying a word. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the fortress walls. His eyes flashed with light, and with just a few swift sword strikes, he cut down a significant number of orcs. He was on a completely different level compared to how Hungyo was at the beginning of the game. He rubbed his chin and smiled. Well, it looks like this is going to be easier than I thought. The soldiers were overjoyed to see reinforcements arriving. Allies are here. They're insanely strong. Are we actually going to survive this? Mini Kong snarled as it lunged at the giant orcs. Meanwhile, the metallic spirit continuously healed them. HP plus HP plus HP plus. Ramba taunted the orcs while effortlessly dodging the projectiles they threw at her. Boo-hoo, are we getting mad? Jinnu was startled out of his wits, having almost gotten blasted himself. Ramba, stop fooling around. Hearing his voice, she jumped and spun around. My bad, sorry. Hongyo lunged out of nowhere, delivering a powerful punch to the monster. How dare you throw an axe at my master? Only then did Pokryong raise her staff, chanting spells in an incomprehensible language. She conjured up a massive source of fire and controlled it to soar upward. Go! A dragon quickly erupted from inside the staff and lunged outward. Explosive dragon fire. Explosive dragon fire unleashes dragon-shaped flames forward. The orcs shrieked as the intense heat scorched them. Even so, some of them still managed to hold their ground despite being badly burned. Rapid, rhythmic footsteps clattered sharply in the hurried rush. Without a second thought, Hongyo delivered a fatal strike to the monster. The giant orc's head hit the ground and bounced like a ball. A mechanical voice rang out from the system. Dungeon cleared. Ramba excitedly threw her hands up in the air. Awesome sauce. Pokryong's level shot up as well. The EX rank Dragon Mage has reached level 5. The intelligence stat of the EX rank Dragon Mage has increased by 2. Not to be outdone, he leveled up right along with her. The EX rank Coach has reached level 5. The critical rate of the EX rank Coach has increased by 1%. Meanwhile, Jinnu received a gift from the system. Your reward has arrived. Medium tier, Summoning Scroll X1. His eyes widened in absolute shock. Holy crap. A medium tier Summoning Scroll costs a whopping 500,000 won. I just made 500k in 3 minutes flat. While the spirits were cheering joyfully, Jinnu was already thinking about something else. I need to find the next dungeon right away. Congrats on the level up. He tightly clenched his hands into fists. Jinnu felt like a whole new world had just opened up to him. It was finally time to change his life by grinding nonstop. The scene shifted to the front of a massive, upscale luxury building. Park Chong-suk leaned his arms on the desk, gloomily burying his face in his hands. Standing beside him with her arms crossed, I asked, where exactly did you get the confidence to make a bet like that? He replied dejectedly, but that bastard started it first. The director, sitting in the middle, gestured with his hands to calm them down and said, come on, everyone. Please simmer down. Hayu sneered, a mocking smile on his lips as he spoke bluntly. It looks to me like Examiner Park Chong-suk is wasting the budget, so I was merely offering a little advice. I mean, what kind of talent management team can't even cultivate a single decent talent? The talents trained by Examiner Park Chong-suk haven't even been selected as national representatives a single time, have they? Are you acting out like this just because the record for the 3rd dungeon was recently broken? Is that all this is about? No matter how furious Park Chong-suk was, he only dared to vent inside his head. Im-hee-soo, that absolute piece of garbage. I want to say something to fire back, but the rankers Im-hee-soo trains get picked for the national team every single year. He might be an arrogant prick, but the guy actually has the skills to back it up. But I'm not just going to sit here and take this lying down anymore. After thinking it through carefully, he finally spoke up and asked, what are you going to do if the talent I train gets picked for the national team? Hayu tilted his face up, his voice dripping with condescension. Oh, so you want to make a bet on that? There's a maximum of 10 national representative slots available. Let's see whose talent climbs to a higher rank. His expression hardened as he replied, you're on. He leaned in close with a wicked smirk and said, the loser has to publicly admit the other examiner is superior and resign from their post. The penalty for breaking the agreement is 1 billion won. Not to be outdone, Park Chong-suk fired back instantly. Let's draw up the contract right now. The director, sitting in the middle, tried to intervene in a panic. Please, stop fighting already. Not to be outdone, Park Chong-suk fired back instantly. Let's draw up the contract right now. The director, sitting in the middle, tried to intervene in a panic. Please, stop fighting already. He bowed his head slightly, closing his eyes as he replied, I know. Suddenly, Park Chong-suk's fingers froze mid-motion. But I trust Jinnu. The way he operates is bound to provide us with crucial data. Hearing that, she was about to say more, but was cut scoffingly short. Even if you say so. Suddenly, Director Chong-suk noticed something unusual and bolted up from his chair. What's going on? Byung-jin rushed in, completely out of breath, to report, you told me to look into the player who recently cleared dozens of D-rank dungeons, all by himself. That player is Jinnu. Both he and Ji practically screamed in utter disbelief. What? She questioned him again, completely bewildered. A rookie player who registered less than a month ago cleared a D-rank dungeon in under 5 minutes? Park Chang-suk burst into a deeply satisfied laugh. See? I told you so. He was so ecstatic that he threw both hands in the air. What did I say? Didn't I tell you Jinwoo is the absolute GOAT? That guts line is way too outdated anyway. Even though Park Chang-suk was thrilled, a hint of panic still lingered in his thoughts. That's right, I always believed in you. On Jinwoo's end, he stepped out of the dungeon gate. Jinwoo looked around and thought to himself, man, my eye for talent is flawless. Inside the small room, the light from the ceiling cast a glow down. Jinwoo stared at his account balance in pure ecstasy, a massive grin flushing his cheeks red. 16 million won. I actually made a whopping 16 million won. Flashbacks of the past few days flashed through Jinwoo's mind. Grinding like a maniac for 4 straight days through 160 D-rank dungeons. Everyone fighting hard together. Looking at the stack of cash, he couldn't help but cry tears of joy. And this is the cash payout after selling off all the medium-tier summoning scrolls. This truly took my blood, sweat, and tears. Weren't we the ones who actually broke a sweat? Finally, my time has come. Jinwoo bolted upright in bed, running the numbers. All right, first things first, I need to split this money into separate accounts. This account is for living expenses, rent, utilities, food, and other random stuff. And this one is the savings account, putting away 10 million won a month to secure my future. He suddenly looked at his phone, lost in thought. Making 10 million a month feels like an absolute dream. Jinwoo stared at the balance on his phone and finally decided to use it to fund his game, an account exclusively dedicated for player expenses. Every single cent in here is going to be reinvested solely into my summoned beasts. Money is just one part of it. The most crucial thing right now is boosting my own value as a player. While grinding the dungeons, the kids all blew past level 30. So it's about time to gear them up and upgrade their runes. To pull that off, the only way is to grind daily dungeons. Jinwoo pondered for a moment and muttered to himself, but if I want to clear daily dungeons fast, I need a core summoned beast. He opened up the app on his phone. I wonder if there are any good ones for sale on the marketplace. Jinwoo was so startled that his jaw literally dropped. He screamed out loud looking at the price list. What the hell? A C rank goes for an average of 20 million won? Why is it so ridiculously overpriced? Thunderbank is 20 million. B ranks shoot all the way up to 200 million. And as for A ranks and S ranks, you can't even find anyone selling them no matter how hard you look. At this rate, my account is going to vaporize in the blink of an eye. Jinwoo sighed, hugging his phone to his chest. Well, using a high-tier summoning scroll only gives you a 1% chance for a B rank, so I guess the price makes sense. He immediately pumped himself back up. But it's totally fine. Jinwoo tapped around his screen and pulled up someone's profile. He hit dial and pressed the phone to his ear. This is exactly why I prepared a backup plan. Tae-seop suddenly burst through the door, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Examiner!" Park Chang-suk, who was sitting inside, asked calmly, "What's got you in such a frantic panic?" He replied anxiously, "We just received a new request from the player Jinwoo." Just hearing that name made him jump right out of his skin. What? Park Chang-suk's demeanor flipped instantly as he rushed over and grabbed Tae-seop's hands. What did he request? Spill it. Let me hear it. Man, you scare the crap out of me. Why are you so incredibly hairy anyway? He found the examiner's behavior bizarre, but had to roll with it. He said if we agree to his terms, he'll provide new information. Tae-seop held the phone right in front of Park Chang-suk's face. Here, this is the text. It's a shopping list for summoned beasts. After looking it over, his eyes practically popped out of his skull. He wants to buy this entire list? The assistant could only explain the situation. He wants us to foot the bill and buy the whole batch. Park Chang-suk anxiously clutched his head. If headquarters were willing to blow cash on all of this, I wouldn't have been using a C-rank summoned beast in the first place. Did he mention what we get in return if we actually buy these for him? Tae-seop's next words instantly relieved some of his anxiety. He promised to share the secret to clearing daily dungeons in the absolute shortest time possible. Park Chang-suk snapped his head up to look at him. Not just the second or fourth dungeon, but every single dungeon throughout the week? Tae-seop quickly confirmed, yes, sir, exactly. He put his hands on his hips, deep in thought. So, he means he's going to spill everything, not just a single piece. That is one hell of a tempting deal. Park Chong-suk flashed a wide grin, showing all his teeth. All right, I've got a handle on the situation. Let me try talking to the director face-to-face to see what I can do. A little later, he slammed his hand down on the desk in pure frustration. Unbelievable. Those stubborn old geezers are a bunch of senile fools. Park Chong-suk stood up in a raging fury. No wonder our country always ranks dead last. Baek Jin-yu asked, completely perplexed. What is up with him? Ji understood the situation perfectly, so she was completely unfazed by the scene. The proposal was rejected, which wasn't surprising since the request was a bit excessive to begin with. She crossed her arms and let out a sigh, watching him yell to blow off some steam. If only every examiner were as passionate as he is. He stepped forward and chimed in. So what did the director actually tell you, sir? Park Chong-suk's face turned beet red with anger as he barked. The old man said, I have to bring concrete proof or have him put on a demonstration first before they even consider coughing up the cash. Hearing his words made Ji pause to think. How is he supposed to clear the trial without any support summoned beast, though? Park Chong-suk clenched his fists and yelled furiously. If that information is the real deal, wouldn't it cause an absolute massive explosion? It's literally an open-pit gold mine. Yet those idiots at headquarters can't even see its value. Her voice suddenly cut in, calming him down. It sounds like a real letdown, honestly. Selling such a lucrative piece of information to headquarters for a mere 1.3 billion. Don't you think that price tag is way too cheap? Park Chong-suk asked back, completely flustered and hesitating. Only 1.3 billion? Ji placed a finger on her chin, speaking slowly. Hey, examiner. She smiled and made an offer. How about I just pay for this out of my own pocket? Park Chong-suk stared at her in absolute shock. I just remembered. Ji belongs to the family that owns the Daesung Group. Ji the fourth granddaughter of Daesung, South Korea's top mega conglomerate. She was raised with the strict standards of a chaebol heiress. Yet Ji was far more interested in players than in running a corporate empire. And the player who had caught her the most recently was none other than Jinu, a total rookie who somehow held an unimaginable amount of information and even had the sheer nerve to haggle with the government. Right? Why don't we just form a private management team dedicated entirely to serving just him? We'll invest heavily to let him extract all the data, and then we'll split the profits. Our approach will be completely different from the current talent management team. He questioned her one more time to be sure. Are you certain? That is an astronomical amount of money. Ji didn't look worried in the slightest, her tone incredibly breezy. Are you actually worrying about my bank account balance right now? Park Chong-suk let out a forced chuckle and replied, Of course not. Ji crossed her arms, her fingers lightly tapping against her sleeve. You don't need to stress about the finances. But before we finalize this, she smiled, laying out her condition. I need to meet with Jinu one more time first. Ji sat resting her chin in her hands, her legs crossed as if she were waiting for someone. Hearing a noise, she casually turned her face to look over. The cafe staff bowed to her with deep respect. Please make yourself comfortable, sir. Jinu walked in and turned back to look at the guy. Feeling a little anxious, he rubbed his neck and thought, Headquarters is pulling out all the stops to show some sincerity. I'm getting back to you regarding what you requested last time. Shall we meet up in person to discuss the details? I'll send you the address and time. Who would have thought they'd move this fast over just a single piece of intel? 1.3 billion is definitely not chump change. Right now, I'm sitting in a high-end restaurant that puts five-star hotels to shame. Getting treated this well, I don't even know how to act. This intel was definitely worth selling. A voice rang out, snapping Jinu out of his train of thought. You're here. Jina glanced toward the voice and saw her standing up. I almost fainted when I looked up her background check. The looks, the family pedigree, the stats, the player genius of the century, boasting astronomical evaluation scores. Who would have guessed that a third-generation heiress of the Daesung Chaebol Group will be working for headquarters? Ji walked over, placing a hand over her heart as she greeted him politely. Thank you for coming. Noticing she was alone, he wondered out loud. Are you by yourself? Ji smiled radiantly and replied, Yes. What I want to talk to you about today has nothing to do with headquarters. It's personal business. The two of them sat down at the table and began chatting. So unfortunately, she rested a hand on her cheek and told Jinwoo, I'm afraid it's going to be tough for headquarters to provide any further support. Examiner Park Chong-suk tried his absolute best, but the opposition was just too overwhelming. Who are you trying to kid? He spoke casually while picking up some food with his utensils. Well, if headquarters is out, then our hands are tied. I'll just secure the #1 spot on my own anyway. I won't be feeding them any more info. Suddenly, I added something that made Jinwoo freeze in his tracks. Instead, I have a counter-proposal. He stopped what he was doing and looked up at her. Excuse me, I placed a glass of water down in front of Jinwoo. Exclusively for you. Jinwoo, I'm planning on launching a private, independent agency. He was a bit taken aback by her words. A one-man agency. Now that proposal isn't half bad. Unlike headquarters, which has to operate with extreme caution, a private outfit answers only to profit, and I can absolutely deliver that profit. But more important than anything else is what I need right this second. A connection with someone who values my intel the most and has the deep pockets for me to leverage. Spoke up again, interrupting his line of thinking. With the professionalism of Daesung backing me, I am ready to support everything Jinwoo needs. Jinwoo couldn't help but get excited, thinking to himself, where on earth could I find a better setup than Daesung? At the end of the day, cold hard cash never lies. He happily took a sip of water before speaking up. We've only met a few times, but you seem like a pretty amazing person. Smiled warmly, returning the compliment. With talent like yours, Jinwoo, that's just a given. Then I'll break down the details along with the contract. If you agree, I'll go check out that vacant plot of land tomorrow. By the way, you should check out the summon you requested. He was a bit stunned by how rushed everything seemed. Wow, that fast? I haven't even signed the contract yet. She suddenly leaned forward slightly, dropping her voice a bit. Well, I've already prepared everything in advance. Regardless of what your final decision is, just consider it a gift. Jinwoo's eyes lit up as he looked at Ji-ah. This is insane. Long live the Chables. The scene shifted over to the side of a mountain. Ajin complained as she walked along. Appa, is he coming out here again today? She looked completely downcast. What has he been so busy with lately that he hasn't even called? I heard he even got his own place now. Suddenly, someone brushed past her, causing her to snap her head up. It was her. Looking at she couldn't help but admire her silently. Wow, she is drop-dead gorgeous. Wait a minute. Her face looks exactly like someone I've seen on Insta before. Ajin tapped her chin, racking her brain to search through her memories. She instantly remembered the post she had scrolled past. Ajin was so shocked her jaw literally dropped. Wait, isn't that girl you Under the blinding, scorching sun, heavy panting echoed through the air. Hongyo shouted out, bursting with intense energy. More. You have to push yourself to the absolute limit if you want to grow. Covered in a pool of sweat, a completely gaunt-looking Ramba replied, I'm already at my limit. He seemed to notice something, his eyes instantly scanning the surroundings. Hongyo pulled off his glasses and whispered to the two of them, Quiet, everyone. Someone's coming. Do not speak. Ramba quickly collapsed onto Jinwoo's head. Taking a quick breather, he turned around and saw Ji-ah walking up. You're here. She continuously fanned herself with her hand. Hey there. Looks like you've been working out since morning. Ramba instantly regained her energy and floated up. Yep, just a light workout. Is this your team lineup? So this is the roster you built. There are a few summoned beasts here I've never seen before. Jinwoo waved his hand, signaling them to dismiss. Yeah, they're my main force. Go back to training, guys. I'll introduce you formally later. Ji-ah reached out and pulled something out. All right, first off, I brought you a gift. A system screen suddenly materialized before him, flashing massive letters across his vision. Player Ji-ah is requesting a trade. Please review the offer carefully. Just like the trade feature in Battle of Summoners that supports player-to-player transactions, it allows for quick bulk sales of summons at a discounted rate. I want to swap my A-rank Sky Seal Bear for a different A-rank. Selling 2 500 value items for 2,000 DM reward reset tickets to get a quote. I have a mutated Light Body Technique A-rank available, accepting the trade. Light Body Technique D, Light Pressure Technique. If you dare to scam me and run, he pointed right at the scammer and yelled, that guy just did that. You could literally die from a system window curse. An offer popped up, making Jinwoo pause to think. Osh trade roster. Jinwoo muttered, did she really grab all of them? Do you accept the trade with player Jia? His body was suddenly enveloped in a soft blue light. Trade complete. Deeply grateful, Jinwoo bowed repeatedly. Thank you so much. This is an incredibly valuable gift. Jia smiled brightly and crossed her arms as she replied, don't mention it. She opened her bag and started rummaging around inside for something. She then held the paperwork right in front of his face and asked, shall we get to work? She quickly broke it down so he could understand. I came up with the name for the management agency by combining our last names. 70% of the shares go to Jinwoo, 25% to me, and we'll give 5% to Examiner Park Chong-suk. The Examiner will remain at headquarters and continue to back us up. We also plan to bring Byung-jin and Tae-seop on board as staff. But aren't those two stationed at headquarters? They submitted their resignations this morning because I offered to triple their previous salaries. Jinwoo held the paperwork in his hands, hesitating slightly. I'm incredibly grateful, seriously. But 70% for me? Are you absolutely sure about this? I replied nonchalantly. Just think of it as my way of placing a bet. Even with only 25%, I'm confident I can maximize the value of that figure. Her gaze instantly turned razor sharp. Besides, since this is a one-man agency, voting rights don't really matter. The only thing that counts is the relationship between you and me, Jinwoo. She glanced at him as he was pressing his fingerprint down, thinking to herself, now is the time to cast greed aside and solidify our bond. Jinwoo pulled out a stamp pad, pressed his thumb onto it to get ink, and stamped the paperwork. Seeing this, I was absolutely thrilled. With the contract finalized, the two of them shared a warm handshake. Well, I look forward to a great partnership with you. Likewise, over on Hungyo's side, something caught his eye by pure chance. Once he spotted it, his eyes locked dead onto that single spot. Then, in a sudden flash, Hungyo leaped right in, leaving completely baffled. What was that? A loud shriek echoed from deep inside the tall grass. He grabbed the figure by both ankles and dragged them out with a loud scrape. Hungyo flipped Jean upside down and started shaking her back and forth violently. Spotting her there, Jinwoo asked, Jean, what on earth are you doing here? Jinwoo frowned slightly, questioning her. What do you mean by that? Looking completely disheveled, Jean didn't answer and merely darted her eyes away to avoid his gaze. He instantly pieced it together and said, did you stalk all the way here because you're a fangirl? Hearing that, she quickly fired back in denial. Who's stalking who? I was just curious, so I tag along. Already left, you know. Jinwoo's reproachful tone hit Jean right where it hurt. Then you were clearly chasing after her. He let out a soft sigh, leaning down to ask further. And once you got here, you were standing around sneakily spying on us. Refusing to back down, she yelled back in frustration. Fine, okay. Let's just say I was in the wrong. Jean furiously stepped up to interrogate him. But what about you, huh? How do you two even know each other? Her eyes widened as she bombarded him with questions. You used some sort of trick, didn't you? How are you two even hanging out together? Jinwoo rolled his eyes, silently groaning in utter disbelief. Man, what a massive headache. He paused, lost in thought. The contract includes a clause regarding family, so they were bound to meet sooner or later anyway. Back then, I had made a promise. I was planning on introducing myself to your family anyway, so this actually works out perfect. Finding out the truth, Jean murmured, completely dazed and starstruck. Wanted to meet me? Witnessing the scene, Jinwoo silently added in exasperation, but definitely not right this second. A second later, she suddenly threw herself onto the ground, throwing a total tantrum. Just tell me already. Unable to handle her whining any longer, he let out a sharp sigh. Jinwoo pondered for a moment before finally opening his mouth. Here's how it went down. After listening to the whole story, Jean managed to piece it together. So, to sum it up, you used to be a pretty well-known gamer back in the day, and you're the one who just shattered the record in that low-tier dungeon? She arrived at her conclusion skeptically. And that's how you cross paths with while dropping by headquarters. Uh-huh. He nodded sluggishly in agreement. Yeah, that's exactly it. Ajin fell in a deep thought after hearing that. Her very next question instantly caught Jinwoo completely off guard. I remember you playing some mobile game a long time ago. Was it that one? He hurriedly and frantically denied it. No, it's not that one. That's a totally different game. I only played Battle of Summoners for about a year. Inside, he couldn't help but warn himself. I can't let it slip that I am the Jinwoo god just yet, she exclaimed with pure excitement. Even if it was only for a year for a trash game like that, that's still an incredibly long time. Every single word felt like a needle piercing straight into Jinwoo's heart. Even so, faced with Ajin's teasing, he could only offer a helpless smile. Who would have thought his gaming addiction would actually pay off like this? Looking at the innocent face before him, a thought welled up inside Jinwoo. It's not that I don't trust you. The thought quietly took root in his mind. But unexpected risks can happen at any time. The heartbreaking memories of that year suddenly came rushing back, hardening Jinwoo's resolve. The family members who have taken care of me for the past 3 years, I absolutely cannot let them fall into harm's way. Determination settled deep into his eyes. I need to get much stronger to protect my family first. Then I'll consider making my true identity public. Just then, she suddenly muttered, but still, why are you only telling me this now? Jinwoo scratched his head and replied, casually, I was going to tell you eventually anyway. Besides, it's not like I have anything to hide. I'll explain everything to Mom and Dad later. So, just keep this under wrap for a while. Okay. Ajin questioned him with a bit of a huff. What? You have your own reasons. Got it. Meanwhile, they could only stand there, screaming in utter futility. Hungyo shot a cold glare. The dark elf child, Pokryong, was currently sitting right on top of Ramba. While he was pinning it down, Jinwoo suddenly spoke up. Oh, and one more thing about that dark elf over there. Hearing him mention her, she jumped in surprise, wondering why on earth she was making that kind of face. His voice suddenly dropped to a serious tone. If you plan on raising her, you should track down a dark wolf to pair up with her. Without it, you won't even be able to unleash 10% of her true power. Tapping away on her phone, Ajin repeated in confusion. A dark wolf? There's actually a summoned beast like that. Jinwoo clicked his tongue and added, It makes sense that you wouldn't know, since it's a beer rank. Hearing that, she asked herself in a bit of a helpless slump, how on earth am I supposed to secure a beer rank right now? With that, Ajin hung her head low, tapping away frantically on her screen to look it up. After a short while, she suddenly wailed in utter despair, Appa. Hearing her tone, he asked back suspiciously, What is it? With a completely frozen face, Ajin interrogated him. You seriously expect me to buy this? 500 million won. I'd literally have to starve myself and skip buying clothes for 20 years just to afford it. Glancing at the price tag for the gray wolf, Jinwoo burst into a reassuring laugh, giving her an immediate, unwavering guarantee without a single shred of hesitation. Just relax, I'll get it for you within a month. But the only response he got was her deeply skeptical laugh. We are talking about a whopping 500 million won here. Jean let out a sarcastic chuckle, half believing him, but mostly teasing. Ever since you became a pro gamer, have you started learning how to flex? Forget it, I'll just save up my own cash and buy it down the road. Under the crisp sunlight, a gentle smile played across Jinwoo's lips. Then he offered a warm, caring reminder, just make sure you don't start crying tears of joy when you actually receive the gift. Having said his piece, Jinwoo turned on his heel and walked away. Training's wrapped up, let's head back. Leaving her staring blankly after him, sensing that something felt incredibly off, Ajin clutched the dark elf, who is currently completely drained and trembling in absolute terror, and frowned in deep thought. It felt as though her older brother had transformed into a completely different person. The sky was crystal blue, the sun shining brilliantly. A week later, and he were standing together, watching the staff unload some gear. Jinwoo voiced his skepticism. What exactly is all this? She flashed a radiant smile and introduced, This is the gear you'll be wearing every time you run the daily dungeons. Smiled cheerfully as she continued her summary. Our company's very first product is none other than information. Adjusting the gear on himself, he asked back, Information? She couldn't help but brag a little. We are going to sell dungeon-clearing video clips for an absolute premium. With that, Gestured toward the gear and explained, and this state-of-the-art equipment setup is absolutely essential to get the job done. There's even a mini camera mounted right on the breast pocket. Once you put it on, the entire surrounding environment will be recorded in full 3D format. She chuckled softly, adding, "It's incredibly lightweight and has great stretch, so you won't feel any discomfort at all." Just a second later, Tae-seop slid his glasses back up, slipping each finger smoothly into the gloves with an almost terrifyingly calm demeanor. In the blink of an eye, a fully geared crew was assembled, completely wrapping up the filming preparations. Jinu's eyes widened the moment he saw it, silently groaning. "Man, this setup is putting way more pressure on me than actually fighting monsters." He gave a slight, awkward nod, testing the waters. "Since this is my very first time entering the second dungeon, I'm not entirely sure if everything will go smoothly. Is it going to be all right?" Offered a gentle, reassuring smile. "Don't worry, we're only going to take the most epic highlights for the final edit anyway." Hearing her answer, he paused and replied softly, "Thank you." Right before stepping through the portal, Jinu suddenly turned his head back to leave a note. "By the way, is it cool if I just break the national record the moment I step inside?" Hearing his question, she blurted out in utter astonishment. "Well, I mean, sure." Inside, she couldn't help but wonder. Didn't you literally just say you were worried it wouldn't go smoothly? He's got to be joking, right? Or is that 1.3 billion price tag putting way too much pressure on him? Even so, quickly offered words of comfort. "Just relax. It doesn't bother me at all. Just play comfortably, exactly like back when you were a pro gamer." He flashed a slight smile, quickly agreeing, "Got it, will do." The moment the words left his mouth, Jinu decisively stepped right into the teleportation portal. Thoughts continuously raced through his mind. The national record for the second dungeon stands at 7 minutes flat. Given the circumstances, a pitch-black abyss is waiting on the other side of this door. Jinu wore a highly confident smirk, silently weighing his options. Honestly, breaking this record might just be a total walk in the park. The clear time directly dictates a player's rank, just like in most other games. Because without them, you're pretty much completely useless. It really lives up to its reputation as a total trash game. This is a defense-type dungeon. Normally, you're supposed to hold your ground against an undead army for 30 minutes straight. However, the clear time still holds absolute, critical importance. Calling it a defense mission is just a fancy title. In reality, the whole thing wraps up the exact moment the Lich boss is taken down. Because of that, rushing straight in to execute the boss has become the most widely used meta tactic. Jino lightly tapped the camera on his chest and noted, "Looks like the gear is working pretty well." Because of that, rushing straight in to execute the boss has become the most widely used meta tactic. Jino lightly tapped the camera on his chest and noted, "Looks like the gear is working pretty well. You have configured a total of 3 teams. Which team would you like to summon? Team A, Team B, Team C. Every player can create up to 3 different roster lineups." Jinu made his selection without a moment's hesitation. "I've already split my roster specifically for running regular dungeons, PvP matches, and daily dungeons." A second later, a barrage of system screens popped up in succession. The X-Rank Coach has been summoned. C-Rank Combat Sheriff has been summoned. D-Rank Mini Kong has been summoned. Over on his right flank, 2 more figures materialized. C-Rank Priest of Light has been summoned. D-Rank Golden Pixie has been summoned. Once the full squad was assembled, the system screen flashed yet again. The Lich's undead army is swarming in. Hold the line until reinforcements arrive. A soft blue notification box popped up, displaying clear text lines. Time remaining, 30 minutes. The timer officially entered its countdown phase at 29 minutes and 59 seconds. On the far side, the Lich waved its arms, commanding the undead army to charge forward. Facing the relentless onslaught, Mini Kong beat its chest and let out a massive roar. It snatched up a skull, the raw power in its grip enough to crush it to pieces in the blink of an eye. Mini Kong channeled all its strength and slammed its fist violently into the ground. Looking at the skeletons scattered on the floor, he spoke up with excitement. "Let's go." Jinu swung his arm forward, giving a highly confident command. Move out, everyone. Up in midair, the Lich hovered with a grim demeanor, observing the entire battlefield. Off in the distance, the undead horde was madly rushing over. While Jinnu was speaking, Hungyo's eyes caught sight of the hidden camera. At first, he didn't utter a word, merely giving a slight nod of agreement toward him. Let's just seize the high ground for now. Seeing that, Jinnu could only click his tongue, silently sizing him up. Man, this guy Hongyo is sharp as a tack. The second he noticed we were filming, he shut his mouth right up. Right now, the system screen was displaying a remaining time of 27 minutes and 59 seconds. He took a quick glance while silently running the calculations. It took exactly 2 minutes flat to reach this point. Jinnu's eyes suddenly locked onto a spot where some Gideons were getting swarmed from all sides by monsters, with even more mobs hot on their heels. Without a single moment of hesitation, Hungyo lunged forward, swinging his blade to slaughter the mobs. Over on the other side, Mini Kong was also putting all its back into ripping skulls right off their shoulders. It let out a ferocious roar, winding its arm back to prime a throwing strike. Mini Kong hurled the skull with massive force right into the swarming mobs charging their way. Witnessing that scene, he couldn't help but shudder slightly. Mini Kong and Hungyo seemed to have everything completely under control. Thank God they're my summoned beasts. Jinnu quickly brushed the thought aside, locking his gaze onto the Lich further away. Next, he came to a halt, offering a slight smirk as he gave an order. Sheriff, get ready. A wave of pride couldn't help but surge deep within his heart. This sheriff summon boasts incredible range and pinpoint accuracy. HP -1, HP -2, but because its base damage output was so incredibly garbage, absolutely nobody bothered using it in the past. Some players would look at it, open-mouthed, and question, leaving on AFK for a whopping 32 hours straight, and it still hasn't finished off the target. But thinking ahead to the next scene, Jinnu happily ran the numbers. However, it happens to be the ultimate counterboss for this low-tier second dungeon, because the Lich over there doesn't have much of a health pool to begin with. A split second later, he suddenly raised his hand to halt the action, leaving the sheriff completely bewildered. Hold on. Don't open fire just yet. Jinnu turned toward the back and issued an order. Radiance, cast your blessing. A surge of power instantly enveloped the firearm gripped in its hands. He gave a slight nod, silently reflecting. The utility of this buff line is incredibly simple. Directly opposite, right above its head, was an information screen displaying shadow protection. Jinnu calculated with absolute confidence. It will completely nullify the Lich's ranged attack immunity skill. Seeing that everything was entirely within his control, the corners of his mouth curled into a slight smile as he spoke up. Perfect. Now fire on my mark. The sheriff instantly raised its weapon, letting loose a relentless barrage of gunfire. At that exact moment, Hungyo was in a state of absolute frenzy, hacking and slashing his way through the undead army. Catching sight of a mob attempting a sneak attack, Mini Kong sprang into motion and lunged straight at it. It delivered a massive downward slam, the sheer, terrifying force shattering the mob to absolute dust. In a mere fraction of a second, the mobs completely swarmed them, cold, sharp spears poised to thrust forward. Mini Kong ground to a sudden halt, its movement freezing dead in mid-motion. Simultaneously, over on the other flank, Radiance was continuously channeling blessings. The two of them relentlessly cast blessings, pumping up the sheriff's power metrics. Living up to all expectations, it continuously spat lead with a completely expressionless face. Hearing the sound of gunfire, Jinnu's face grew slightly pale with a hint of helplessness. Faced with such a tiny trickle of damage indicators, he was completely left at a loss for words. Sure enough, it's exactly as expected. No matter how you look at it, that HP -2 damage looks absolutely pathetic compared to the rest of the squad. Even so, looking at that dead serious expression, Jinnu couldn't help but tell himself, but hey, at least the enemy's health pool is steadily ticking down. Bullets kept flying, but the damage numbers looked like they were barely tickling it. Raining shots down nonstop, it eventually started getting on the boss's nerves. Catching sight of the Lich absolutely blowing its top, he couldn't help but silently comment. Normally, with a base level and rune setup this week, You'd be shooting until the cows come home to get this done. The countdown clock steadily ticked away, leaving 26 minutes and 15 seconds on the board, while Mini Kong's frame was continuously being bathed in a stream of HP plus buffs. Jinna let out a soft sigh and noted, "That is exactly why everyone wrote it off as a slowpoke and just skipped it entirely." Meanwhile, its blessing stacks were continuously racking up. HP plus, HP plus, HP plus. Witnessing this, he paused slightly and muttered to himself. Then again, in a flash, a mob suddenly leaped high into the air, startling the two of them. Taking advantage of that exact opening, the rest of the horde quickly rushed in to ambush Mini Kong. The mob let out a piercing shriek, a bizarre, twisted laugh that felt like it was tearing right through the air. His gaze locked onto Jinnu, who was wearing an unreadable smile. While he was still lost in thought, a figure suddenly rushed forward. That only applies to ordinary players. Without a single sound of warning, a blade sliced through the monster's head from behind. Jinnu glanced at Hungyo, who was coldly closing in on him, and fell into thought. As for me, I already have Hungyo in my hands. He stood there letting him handle the monsters, his mind constantly calculating. He just needed to use Hungyo's skill to awaken its hidden potential, then equip a rune set with the perfect skills. Jinnu's eyes suddenly flicked toward the police chief as he silently added to his thought. Then even a high-grade lich would only take a single bullet to end. In an instant, the lich suddenly froze, and to the utter shock of the undead army, it abruptly fell over backward. Within a split second, the system screen popped up with a notification. Dungeon cleared. Clear time. For minutes 12 seconds. You had just set a new record in South Korea. You have achieved a special accomplishment. He couldn't help but start bragging. This spoon murder assassin tactic is seriously elite. On the outside, Tae-seop muttered in utter disbelief. I can't believe he actually dared to start his record-breaking run in the second dungeon. Ji-ah quietly pondered, asking herself out loud, isn't it a bit too early to be doing this? She lowered her voice and mumbled. It's only been a week since we handed those summoned beasts over to him. Well, even if he doesn't break the record, we still have to cheer him on. Hearing that, Baekjin just slightly bowed his head and sighed. That's true. Then he suddenly piped up with a probing question. But can Jinnu really break all the daily dungeon records? Seeing that confused look, Byong-jin quickly explained. That's not what I meant. Breaking the second day's record is incredible, no doubt about that. But he didn't even bother to explain how he's going to get through the other dungeons. He looked toward the revenue board and continued. It's not like Korea is lacking players with a year of experience. What if he's just talking big? I'll coldly cut him off. Are you worried? That icy voice instantly shut Byong-jin right up. She paid it no mind, smiling faintly as she went on. Anyway, I'm investing my own pocket money into this. Her next words immediately caused their eyes to widen in shock. Even if what you fear actually happens, I guarantee the careers of you too. The people who trusted me won't be affected. In their eyes, I now looked like a winged angel. Of course, your salaries will stay exactly the same. The two of them hugged each other tight, weeping tears of pure emotion. This really is the dream job. I'm definitely going to give this place my all. She shook her head with a helpless smile and thought to herself, because I can afford to do that. For a brief moment, Jia's eyes turned razor-sharp. Thinking of him, she couldn't help but silently comment. Besides, Jinnu is definitely holding a ton of skills back. The question Jinnu asked right before stepping into the warp gate suddenly flashed in her mind. Would it be cool if I just broke the national record the second I walk in? A suspicious thought suddenly crossed her mind. It was almost as if these dungeons were absolutely nothing to him. Right at that moment, an astonished shout suddenly rang out. The record was just broken. What followed were frantic cries of shock. Which record? The second dungeon for newbies took only 4 minutes 12 seconds. In front of the monitor, everyone couldn't help but wonder. He shaved a whopping 3 minutes off the old record. Just what kind of monster did this? Staring right at that familiar face, the person gasped in utter shock. It's Jinnu, who else? Tae-seop couldn't help but blurt out as well. This is seriously insane. The leaderboard was now displayed on the screen. 1. Jinnu 2. Kanbu Jeonol. Byong-jin's eyes popped out as he gasped in pure astonishment. The two of them started chattering away, unable to believe this was actually happening. He's truly amazing. Meanwhile, Ji-ah stood in the back, lost in thought, breaking the record on his very first try. A rush of excitement hit her, making her hands tremble. She already had her answer, so the plan really did succeed. As the battle drew to a close, the sun quietly rose on the horizon, and the warp gate finally appeared. Jinwoo stood there with his hands on his hips, his eyes full of confidence. He turned off the camera, telling himself he still had business to take care of before logging out. Looking at the virtual screen before him, Jinwoo smiled and calculated. From this moment on, the endless grinding journey begins. Right now, a prompt was popping up on the screen. Do you want to auto-battle with this lineup? In BOS, you can just clear the daily dungeon once to enable AFK auto-hunt, meaning, as long as my summons keep repeating the process, the rewards will automatically fill up my pockets. With that thought, he didn't hesitate to hit accept. The next second, Hongyo vanished before his eyes, replaced by Ramba, an EX-grade wind fairy summon. Jinwoo smiled faintly and commanded, Ramba, I'm leaving the grinding for the second dungeon to you. Jinwoo smiled faintly and commanded, Ramba, I'm leaving the grinding for the second dungeon to you. Jinwoo smiled faintly and commanded, Ramba, I'm leaving the grinding for the second dungeon to you. Old memories suddenly rushed back into his mind, like a slow-motion film reel. She collapsed to the ground, groaning in sheer despair. I'd rather go grind. Please, master, let me go grind. All right then. After wrapping up the assignments, he immediately calculated his next move. Great. Now I'll just clear out the remaining dungeons like this. I'm going to live here forever. After that, I'll harvest the loot from the AFK farm. After wrapping up the assignments, he immediately calculated his next move. Great. Now I'll just clear out the remaining dungeons like this. I'm going to live here forever. After that, I'll harvest the loot from the AFK farm. Before stepping through the warp gate, he still didn't forget to give a final instruction. I'm counting on you, Ramba. Ramba, sitting on top of the mini-summon's head, guaranteed enthusiastically. Roger that. Leave it to me. On the other side, the warp gate opened up. Amidst the glow of the warp gate, Jinwoo slowly stepped out. The moment he walked out, he froze in utter suspicion. Slapping him right in the face was the sight of Tae-seop rolling out a carpet with deep reverence. Welcome back. Accompanied by the completely starstruck faces of Ji-ah and Baek Jinwoo. I always believed in you. Jinwoo handed over the gear with a bit of awkwardness. Yeah, all the recorded footage is right in here. He hesitantly piped up to ask, do you need me to help with anything else? She smiled gently and quickly nodded. Absolutely. On the other side, the moment he received the gear, he gasped with deep emotion. Thank you so much. Ji-ah gave a professional reassurance. We will keep this strictly confidential, so don't worry about any information leaking out. But Jinwoo responded with a completely detached, indifferent attitude. As for the new record getting leaked, I don't really care all that much. This caused her to ask back suspiciously. What did you say? He coldly made his demand. Instead, just make sure you protect my family well. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel anxious. The gangs are still running wild all over South Korea, but since Ji-ah holds the power now, they will probably tighten security. Ji-ah fell silent, lowering her eyes as if calculating something. In the end, she gave a slight nod of agreement. Fine, I will protect them, even if I have to use the entire power of Daesung. Meanwhile, in a certain dark room, Komodo opened its massive maw, ready to swallow its prey whole. While it was happily eating away, a dungeon clear notification popped up over Jinwoo's head. Time, 3 minutes 10 seconds. He smirked with sheer satisfaction. Since I'm recording, I use Komodo to clear the stage. But with this lineup, couldn't I actually set a world record? Looking at Komodo lying over there completely satisfied, Jinwoo silently calculated. I just need to equip movement speed runes on this Komodo and max out the speed buff capability of the Wind Sky Hawk. Then breaking the record is a walk in the park. If I use Hongyo to awaken its potential, it might only take a single minute. With that thought, he immediately pressed the stop recording button. Once everything was settled, Jinwoo instantly turned around and stepped into the warp gate. So that wraps up the recording for the third day. The fourth dungeon. The fourth dungeon is where you farm defense runes. It has a very unique trait, and that is, shivering violently, he wrapped his arms tight around himself and screamed internally. It's so freezing here that it makes you shudder, and it cuts my movement speed down drastically. Jinnu complained while reaching his hand out to make a selection. It's freezing to death out here. At the same time the two creatures appeared, the system screen popped up. Summon C-grade Ice Cat. Summon B-grade Wind Skyhawk. The next second brought a barrage of other notifications. Summon B-grade Titan Golem. Summoned C-grade Horned Fairy. Summoned EX-grade Dragon Mage. The moment the Ice Cat appeared, it quickly dispelled the biting cold. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. In this place, you absolutely must have a summon that possesses a cold-resistant skill, and among them, the Ice Cat is the #1 choice. Jinnu cast his gaze into the distance. Let's see. On the other side, a mob of monsters was frantically rushing toward them. Showing zero fear, he calmly spoke up. Titan Golem. Receiving the order, the Titan Golem excitedly swung its arms. Amplify the Golem's protective armor. And without stopping, Jinnu immediately turned to call the Wind Skyhawk, silently plotting in his mind. Let's use the Skyhawk speed boost skill, so we can glide through this quickly. The Wind Skyhawk gently flew over and landed on its shoulder. The Titan Golem also reached its hand out, so the three of them could step on. Waiting until the whole group was securely seated, it accelerated and bolted off. The fierce wind slammed into his face, making him turn pale. Jinnu quickly covered his mouth in sheer agony. The alertness is seriously intense, but I'm getting so dizzy. Whoever holds out until the end wins. Meanwhile, those monsters launched their attacks first, firing a relentless barrage of ice spheres. The Titan Golem nimbly dodged and weaved through them. He smirked with deep satisfaction and thought to himself, the Titan Golem really is beyond reproach when it comes to being a meat shield. Even so, another thought suddenly popped up, but that's still not all of it. It watched quietly for a brief moment and then leaped upward. Watching the Titan Golem easily scale the high cliff wall, he couldn't help but marvel. By taking shortcuts that only a golem could take, I've saved a massive amount of time. Then Jinnu suddenly turned over to give a signal. Pokryong, get ready to fight. Pokryong didn't answer, only casting its eyes upward. Sensing the right timing, the hand gripping the cliff wall suddenly tightened. The Titan Golem launched itself powerfully into midair. Right after that, a bright red warning screen flashed. Boss! Warning! Warning! The bosses appeared. The moment the monster spotted them, it let out a ferocious roar. Seeing the tense situation, he hurriedly called the Horned Fairy. The Horned Fairy quickly flew over his head and cast her magic. Jinnu commanded while observing the battlefield. Pokryong, strike now. Instantly, a raging fire was summoned. The fire dragon rushed forward, closing in on the boss in the blink of an eye. The moment the roar ended, the monster was completely engulfed in a sea of flames. The system screen quickly popped up. Boss defeated. Dungeon cleared successfully. Time, 4 minutes 22 seconds. He couldn't contain his joy and cried out. Awesome. After the battle, the whole group took a temporary breather. Jinnu hummed happily. Yet another new record has been established. He abruptly froze, his face turning pale before the horrified stares of the entire group. Jinnu collapsed, crying out, "Motion sickness! No, wait, I lost the golem." And on the newspaper, the headline clearly read, "New national record set. Low-grade web dungeon new record of 4 minutes 22 seconds. Who is Jinnu?" From that exact moment, everyone wore a skeptical look upon reading the article. Jinnu, that particular girl wondered with a bit of doubt. Isn't this the person who cleared the 3rd dungeon before? Now, the media was left with only one single question. 20 News. Who is Jinnu? Inside the cafe, whispers and chatter kept echoing. Who on earth is Jinnu? You seriously don't remember? He's the guy making those wild claims on the forum about breaking Kong Jian Ho's records. Oh, I remember now. In another place, similar questions were being thrown around. So, he just set another new record? Yeah, he actually managed to overtake Kong Jian Ho. Sweeping his gaze across the screen, he let out a highly skeptical remark. He doesn't look like a top ranker at all. News articles were being published nonstop. Daily dungeon records smashed by Jinnu. a skyrocketing rookie player. The record wall of the third dungeon officially crumbles before the name Jinnu. It's Jinnu again, shattering the clear time for the fourth dungeon. Whispers of gossip naturally followed. Unbelievable. This is completely unprecedented. All eyes were now fixed entirely on the name Jinnu. The director muttered with a bit of a headache. If it really is Jinnu, the secretary at his side quickly chimed in. Sir, he's exactly the one Examiner Park Chong-suk mentioned earlier. He said he would provide information if we handed over the summons to him. He slightly raised an eyebrow and inquired. Is he the one Examiner him? Hee-soo fiercely opposed. The secretary immediately confirmed. Yes, it's him. Back then, we refused to pay up without getting the information first. The director leaned back exhaustedly. But it looks like everything he said was the absolute truth. He asserted with utter conviction. That is definitely the case. He didn't say a word, only letting out a brooding sigh. Recalling the scene back then, the director thought to himself regretfully. Thinking back, Imi-su's words actually made sense at the time. Recalling the scene back then, the director thought to himself regretfully. Thinking back, Imi-su's words actually made sense at the time. But the more he thought about it, the more the director felt a deep sense of regret. If only I had agreed to back Jinnu back then, not only would I be cheered by the public right now, but I would have also scooped up a massive pile of votes. He shook his head in deep misery, silently blaming. Old man Imi-su is completely senile. His judgment of people is garbage. To think he personally kicked away a gold mine of good fortune right in front of his face. Yet the director still spoke up. First off, where is the secretary? He replied while handling his tasks. Right here, director. He quickly made a decision. Find a way to get in touch with Mr. Jinnu once again. Hearing this, the secretary asked back in confusion. Sir, are we taking the initiative to contact him directly? A look of fierce determination flared in the director's eyes. Exactly. At first I thought it was a scam, but it turned out to be the real deal. We must pull him over to our side at all costs. A look of fierce determination flared in the director's eyes. Exactly. At first I thought it was a scam, but it turned out to be the real deal. We must pull him over to our side at all costs. And running the third dungeon will yield enhancement potions. He strode forward with absolute certainty through the warp gate. A desolate desert landscape unfolded right before his eyes. The fifth dungeon drops skill books. These books don't help you learn the special moves of the summons, though. Even less so any hidden skills that only a trainer can unlock. But it still drops a lot of pretty solid moves, so it's well worth grinding. Thanks to that, I can just skip it and don't need to run the Sunday dungeon anymore. At the Sunday dungeon, a thank you note was presented. Thanks for your hard work. It's best if we never meet again. An exhausted Jinnu and Ramba cried out in unison. Awesome, it's finally quitting time. Both the Sunday and fifth dungeons drop the exact same skill books, but running the fifth one yields way more. With that thought, he smugly calculated. That's enough of a warm-up. Maybe I should go practice a bit more. Since there's no need to constantly grind these places, I decided to give the whole team a break on Sunday. So what exactly is that incredibly easy fifth dungeon? Amidst the landscape of shattered rocks and earth, the system suddenly blasted a signal. Warning, warning, warning. The bright red screen cast its glow. The boss monster is revealing itself. Looking at the monster before him, he couldn't help but think to himself, it's a place where you have to plunge straight into a death match with the boss immediately. Jinnu complained dejectedly. The boss here has a defense stat that is utterly absurd. The standard strategy usually involves using a B-grade White Wolf to trigger a defense reduction skill. However, he didn't follow the beaten path at all and quickly summoned everyone. A massive hand slammed down onto the ground, followed by a heavy stomp. Staring at the majestic Titan Golem, Jinnu's confidence instantly surged. If you're strong enough to just crush it with raw damage, then it doesn't even matter. He lightly raised his hand and turned off the camera. This video probably can't be sold. Jinnu couldn't help but sigh. If I just bring out a lineup full of monsters to beat the crap out of it like this, where people even go to learn from it? Today's menu, stir-fried Earth Golem. He introduced with a cheerful laugh. First, everyone, pull out your high-tier summons. Just take it easy, like pulling caviar out of the fridge. Doesn't everyone just happen to have a frog sitting in their pocket? Hearing this, The audience instantly showed their dissatisfaction. All right, just shut the whole shop down already. Jinwoo couldn't help but sigh. If I just bring out a lineup full of monsters to beat the crap out of it like this, where people even go to learn from it. Today's menu, stir-fried earth golem. He introduced with a cheerful laugh. First, everyone, pull out your high-tier summons. Just take it easy, like pulling caviar out of the fridge. Doesn't everyone just happen to have a frog sitting in their pocket? Hearing this, the audience instantly showed their dissatisfaction. All right, just shut the whole shop down already. In the end, he had to wrap it up. Anyway, it's not like there aren't any tricks to breaking the record. With that thought, Jinwoo climbed onto its hand while saying, "Hey, Titan Golem." In the end, he had to wrap it up. Anyway, it's not like there aren't any tricks to breaking the record. With that thought, Jinwoo climbed onto its hand while saying, "Hey, Titan Golem." In line with Jinwoo's thoughts, the two golems clashed with each other. That's exactly why I had to call out the Titan Golem. In line with Jinwoo's thoughts, the two golems clashed with each other. That's exactly why I had to call out the Titan Golem. Pokryong, Hungyo, Jinwoo commanded directly. Focus on taking its head off. In a split second, the two golems locked in fierce combat. But the next second, its arm was suddenly sliced clean off. Before anyone realized it, Hungyo had already landed on the Earth Golem's arm. He calmly sheathed his sword while it stared back in sheer disbelief. Before the Earth Golem could even react, it was hacked into tiny pieces. Up in midair, Pokryong also raised her staff high, summoning sacred fire. She coldly prepared to deliver the finishing blow. The flames instantly transformed into a roaring dragon and plummeted down, immediately engulfing the Earth Golem. In the end, only its scorched body remained. With the battle over, Pokryong landed right on the Titan Golem's shoulder. A barrage of notifications followed. Boss monster defeated. Dungeon cleared successfully. Dungeon cleared successfully. Jinwoo pumped his fist in pure excitement and cried out, "I just shaved a whole minute off the national record." With that, he looked down at Hungyo and marveled. Hungyo is honestly so broken he ruins the game balance. Even so, Jinwoo could only cross his name off the list. Even though he's that strong, I don't plan on taking him and the main lineup into this 5th dungeon. He looked around, lost in thought. I just need a single, well-trained Pokryong. Looking at Pokryong staring up at him with sparkling eyes, Jinwoo thought to himself with pride. She's got more than enough power to clear the highest grade dungeon in a heart. Looking at Pokryong staring up at him with sparkling eyes, Jinwoo thought to himself with pride. She's got more than enough power to clear the highest grade dungeon in a heartbeat. Hearing his voice, Hungyo gave a slight nod, while Ramba happily waved her hand in greeting. Amidst the rocky ruins, his voice rang out filled with immense relief. All right, let's go for another round. A short while later, Jinwoo stepped through the warp gate once again. Right at that moment, someone suddenly approached to ask, "Excuse me, are you the player, Jinwoo?" Looking at the two strange men, he responded with a bit of caution. "That's me." One of them respectfully handed over a business card and introduced themselves. "We are from the Secretariat under the Director's office." The moment Jinwoo saw the business card, he spoke up. "I see." Not wanting to get tangled up in a long conversation, he immediately asked, "Is there something you guys need from me?" Meanwhile, he couldn't help but wonder. "I thought the discussions with headquarters ended ages ago." The secretary quickly explained, "Our side has carefully reviewed the proposal you brought forward last time, Mr. Jinwoo." His monotonous voice continued to drone on. "Seeing as you've achieved such impressive results, we are looking to partner with you." Jinwoo cut him off instantly. "Oh, that thing." He waved his hand slightly with a smirk, turning them down. "Yeah, forget about it." Hearing this, the two of them stared with wide eyes in absolute shock. "What did you say?" Seeing their reaction, Jinwoo let out a scoffing laugh. "Reviewing and delivering results, my foot." The image of Ji-Ah with her angel wings flashed in his mind. "I'll pay you 13 billion straight up. Just trust me." Right behind her was the director, saying his piece. "Let me review this. Just place your trust in headquarters." The more Jinwoo thought about it, the angrier he got. What kind of guy do they take me for? Do they think I'm a total pushover? They talk a big game, but they're the complete opposite of Ji-Ah. With that thought, he spoke up, startling the secretary. Furthermore, Jinwoo explained with a completely nonchalant attitude, "I already have a management agency. If you want to talk business, just contact over at UBX directly. Once he finished speaking, he walked away decisively. That's all. Catch you later. Leaving the secretary completely dumbfounded. UBX, he asked back in total disbelief. What the hell is UBX? The secretary voiced his confusion. He just brought it up. Don't tell me it's someone from the Daesung group. He frowned slightly and barked an order. Investigate this immediately. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of dread. For some reason, it felt like they had just thrown away a golden opportunity. On the message screen with Jinwoo, the bureau chief inquired rather frantically. Are you awake yet? You must be sound asleep. Out of nowhere, I found myself missing you so much. If only I had met you sooner. I've fallen for you, Jinwoo. Jinwoo coldly sent back a single thumbs up alongside a notification message. Jinwoo has left the chat room. The next day, right in the heart of the city, Jinwoo stood comfortably soaking up the sun on a rooftop. He suddenly whipped around and mumbled. It should be about time by now. The next day, right in the heart of the city, Jinwoo stood comfortably soaking up the sun on a rooftop. While other dungeons require your summons to do the fighting. Master, you're such a total noob. Wait up for me. Here, the player must personally overcome the challenges for it to count as a clear. Without a second thought, Jinwoo made his decision. I need to get right to training. With that thought, he quickly pressed the summon button. In an instant, the surrounding space warped completely. The system screen popped up, summoning B-grade Sky, Flying Dragon. Jinwoo walked slowly over to the railing and looked down. The moment he saw the sheer height, he couldn't help but think to himself, thanks to my shield, I don't have to worry about falling to my death, but this is still a total thriller. Then Jinwoo suddenly spoke up. Hey, Sky. Sky quickly lowered itself. He climbed aboard, asking, Let's go, you ready? At Jinwoo's command, it quickly took off into the air, straight ahead to the East Sea. The sudden zero-gravity sensation caught him off guard, making him squeeze his eyes tightly shut. But very quickly, Jinwoo opened his eyes. Looking down at the miniature city unfolding beneath him, he let out a surprised exclamation. This is way more fun than I thought. With that thought, he happily gave the command. Awesome. Let's roll. A short while later, at the coastal waters, Hongyo blurted out the second he spotted him. Oh, my master, he suddenly bellowed with immense pride. Your flying skills are absolutely elite. You truly never disappoint me. Jinwoo thought to himself with a bit of embarrassment. Overpraising me like that just puts on the pressure. But out loud, he quickly deflected. It's really not that spectacular. But Hongyo loudly protested. No, I am dead serious. At this moment, Pokryong chimed in quietly. But it really is the truth. She recounted with sheer admiration. At first, the two of us struggled like crazy just trying to ride a flying dragon. An image of the two main summons, looking utterly miserable, suddenly popped up. He thought to himself, completely speechless. Come to think of it, back during the Summoner War, Hongyo and Pokryong used to ride dragons and sky dolphins too. Pokryong didn't hesitate to pile on the praise. You really are Saint Jinwoo. You are completely worthy of being our master. You're just too awesome. Looking at her like that, Jinwoo's heart totally melted. So cute. All right, thanks everyone. Meanwhile, Hongyo mumbled gloomily on the side. Why isn't anyone praising me? Talk about blatant discrimination. He quickly turned his face away. Just let it go. Scanning the vast sea before him, Jinwoo asked quietly. Next up is learning to ride the sky dolphin, right? She answered briskly. You bet. He showed a humble attitude. Learning from experienced folks like you guys is the fastest way to improve. I'm counting on you both. Pokryong continued enthusiastically. I'll do my absolute best. He also tightened his grip and replied. Orders received, Master. A few days later, at the 6th dungeon. By this time, Jinwoo had teleported into the 6th dungeon. A confident smile played on the corners of his lips. This was a place dedicated to farming special runes. Jinwoo called out while warming up. Wind Skyhawk. On the virtual screen, text was currently popping up. The running challenge will begin in 10 seconds. Reach the finish line as fast as possible. This was the exact place that had earned him the God of Speed title. The moment the Wind Skyhawk appeared, it heard his command. Buff me with that haste spell. Jinwoo lowered his center of gravity, preparing to sprint. At the same time, the countdown appeared. 3, 2, 1. The exact moment the countdown hit 1, a sharp glint flashed in Jinu's eyes. The signal having been given, he blasted forward like a rocket. Up in midair, gun barrels suddenly revealed themselves, pointing straight down. He zipped forward, nimbly dodging and weaving through the hail of bullets. In a split second, a bullet grazed Jinu's arm. He agilely leaped up, landing squarely on the golden tiles. Now that I'm experiencing this firsthand, it feels incredible. It's way more fun than just watching it through a computer screen. A thrill of excitement sparked in Jinu's eyes. It was time to enter the first hidden path. Before his eyes was a blinding light where the horizon met the vast sea. Jinu smirked, calculating his move. Normally, you're supposed to cross the water and just keep sprinting straight ahead. But the moment the thought crossed his mind, he suddenly launched himself high into the air. Jinu flipped his body, diving straight down into the sea. He smiled radiantly and called out loudly, "Sky Dolphin, come on out." A dolphin erupted from beneath the waves. Summon sea-grade Sky Dolphin. The moment Jinu grabbed onto it, he nimbly closed his eyes and held his breath. The next second, the two vanished into the deep sea. Admiring the dazzling underwater scenery, he couldn't help but think, if I use the dolphin to travel underwater, I can bypass a whole mess of obstacles up there. Jinu narrowed his eyes slightly as the two prepared to breach the surface. The instant they blasted out of the sea, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Sky Flying Dragon!" Spotting that familiar figure, Jinu quickly climbed off. From this point on, he channeled his strength and leaped off the dolphin's body. Jinu landed effortlessly onto Sky's back. It was going to be an aerial show. The two nimbly dodged every single attack. We just need to fly right past the remaining traps, and it's over. In the blink of an eye, the finish line appeared. His eyes widened in sheer excitement as he roared, "Clear!" Following Jinu's triumphant shout, the system screen popped up instantly. "You have reached the finish line." The system rejoiced with congratulations. Dungeon completed. Time, 2 minutes 16 seconds. Right after that, a spectacular fireworks display filled the screen. "Congratulations on breaking South Korea's national record. You have achieved a special accomplishment."